So really, you don't have the option to ban it out, which has been one of the most like contested things, I suppose, to make sure that they can't have Loki on the other side. But the double Vanguards has been removed. What do you protect here? You can't go for the Loki because it was first banned out. They're going to go for the Luna. They know that losing out on too many strategists just leaves you with nothing to work with, and RAD have punished a lot of teams with that in the past.
BRR currently leaning heavily on the Vanguard bans, taking out that Magneto and the EMEA, whereas currently BRR have both left available for them. RAD's going to take out the Wolverine. We saw that coming in a little bit for BRR PATAPIM in their game versus Virtus Pro. It's something that RAD also likes to lead on quite nicely. And while this is familiar from the Virtus Pro game, dueling Captain America bans will be taken away.
In that area as well, it's sort of 50-50 ban. Both teams take it out at the same time, so it is a little bit of a game of chicken. So it's a consistent thing that's coming out from teams. It's just on that start of the second phase, I guess you'd call it. Both teams getting rid of the Captain America, but now a duelist has been taken out for BRR PATAPIM. They're considering protecting another one to stop RAD from taking out a little bit too much more. They're going to protect the Punisher, but it does feel like now you haven't protected any Vanguards. Is that going to be the last move for RAD to just get something else out? You haven't banned out a Magneto, you haven't banned out an Emma Frost. Do you even really care? Honestly, because a lot of teams don't seem to put too much focus on it now. They're going for the Cloak and Dagger, so yeah, a lot of that sustain to keep BRR PATAPIM alive is going to be missing.
The Cloak and Dagger taken off the board, that Terror Cape plus the Punisher would have been extremely tough to deal with. And of course, a Lunar Snow plus Cloak and Dagger is one of the hardest strategist duos to break through just due to their incredible healing output. Looks like RAD going to protect that Cloak and Dagger for themselves.
Ooh.
They also have access. No, they changed their mind, going for that Wolverine. With a load of the Vanguards getting banned away, they're setting themselves up to try and at least break through those Vanguards. While Magneto and Emma Frost are so strong, if we do not have the Diamond form or that magnetic iron bulwark up, then Wolverine can have a lot of freedom to move around and try and isolate people. But RAD forced very much off the at least standard duo meta when it comes to with the Strange taken out as well.
BRR PATAPIM have banned out all of the shields.
Yep, every single one.
So RAD have got to go for a bit of a brawlier composition, which, you know, now that you don't have Captain America on your side, you still have access to like Magneto, Emma Frost, but also Doctor Strange. There isn't too much to block any Eye of Agamottos that come through. That's very scary for RAD, but I almost feel that there's an element of being prepared for stuff like this. Like I said, Trust Me, he's been putting a lot of time into the theory on how to use this advanced draft system, but this feels like a bit of a gamble, right? One team's tried to go and take out the strategists, the other's trying to remove all of those main Vanguards that can block a lot of stuff coming in. And when one of the teams has Wolverine as well, that could be a little bit scary for PATAPIM if they're not careful.
Let's talk through remaining tools to get rid of that Eye of Agamotto, like you say, as immediately Enzo is hovering onto that Doctor Strange. Group walls can be used to protect. You can use Cloak and Dagger for that defense with that Dark Force teleport to make sure that you get out of danger, and you can also utilize the Hulk Indestructible Guard as a protective tool, as it does protect against crowd control. But that is a very limited draft when it comes to actually being able to take long extended duels. For now, Enzo is going to be working on taking out some of the trees, remove the cover, as BRR PATAPIM using the portal do take the more aggressive early position.
Maybe trying to get Pokey set up with the turret, but it's Tanuki that actually goes down, overextends a little bit, and trust me, over on the crew, he doesn't really have much to block a lot of this damage other than the walls itself, and Rajaro moving over towards the thing, trying to go for a little bit more of a brawlier approach. So these barriers, it really is the case of not wanting to go for these engagements at all. Having all these shields doesn't matter if you've got 3 characters that are just going to push up and hold left click right into your face, or left control if you're Enzo in that case. But Naga's finding so much on this Wolverine. Not available on the other side, is taking out one of the Vanguards, and this is a very passive approach for BRR PATAPIM. You've got the Luna sat on the high ground with Pokey in the turret, and a lot of damage is being done, but the progression of the point is being firstly taken by RAD.
Even though BRR PATAPIM got the positioning first and got the first pickup onto Melio, they do lose the first point here. RAD playing this a little bit slower, but making sure that they have the more forward position. You hear the throw being offered. In comes Wolverine, catching Magneto, but not a lot of setup here, just enough for a little bit of an early burst. Straggling Prison up on the wall to hold them in the air, but the final judgment coming on out, and without the shields, what do you have to protect against this Pokey? Marching forward, only found Melio, as they are trying to sustain with those double strategist ultimates.
Oh, the last stand does catch onto the Punisher, but he just slips in, Homer Simpson style, just reversing into the invisible boundary for a bit of protection. But there's not going to be too much safety here when you've just put the thing right into the center of it. The Galactic Legend from Tanuki trying to find an opportunity for BRR PATAPIM to get on the point, because whilst it is them clearing up, and you see on the right-hand side, the screen filled with a few more picks onto the amber side, it's just them taking the point with, I think, RAD getting about 50% on the board.
Just over 50%, setting themselves up quite nicely as they are going to be making their way back in, keeping this Wolverine to look. And again, a reminder, it was banned away from BRR PATAPIM by RAD. This gives them the one-sided Wolverine to try and isolate characters like the Strange, who is quite vulnerable to this. Ken, on the Invisible Woman, is attempting to counteract this, and has so far been doing a pretty solid job, saving quite a few members of BRR PATAPIM. But RAD already regrouping, coming in with that final judgment once again, but they have no strategist of Media M not finding anything from Pokey.
Nobody has actually gone down from RAD just yet, though, but there's the picks that you want to be seeing. Rajara just able to lead the line. It's traded out on the other side from Pokey. 3 of his teammates, 4 of his teammates are down, and he's deciding that now is the final judgment time. This is the opportunity to use it. That could be a potential misplay. He's gained in a couple more picks, but RAD have taken the objective. And that was a little bit awkward timing. He pulls out the ult just as 3 of his teammates go down.
Taking down Fate, which will give a little bit of a stagger, hoping that BRR PATAPIM could portal in, but they've just decided to hold onto it. Wait and re-engage a little bit later. Level 1 Crook, looking to perform some crimes, stealing an ultimate in at just 80% more as they did burn one during that fight to make sure that they had that defensive ability to sustain through that attack from Polly. Ayamagamoto, no shields, like you said, into the back line, and they are easily able to take down number 1 Crook, but Rajaro gets the turnaround.
I mean, RAD are doing well to survive this, to be honest. Galactic Legend might be a little bit too much to out-sustain with, especially when there's no ultimates just yet. It was that eternal bond from Fate that's kept everybody going. And trust me, just going down before he had that strangling prison. There might be a hero yet for Naga, as the last stand is going to be used to cut out at least Ken from this engagement. But they have to give up this space. They've reached 99%, and they managed to force out both of the strategist ultimates on the other side. They need one clean engagement, and they've got a great tool with the strangling prison to deal with.
They've been doing such a good job strangling prison at the ready, as well as the clobbering time. They can really shut down the strategist this way, prevent healing output while grouping everyone up. If they can do that, then they might not even need some damage dealers here to just get those finishing blows. They just need to make sure that they stagger those correctly. Melio playing safe on the flank to make sure that they're not the one who's going to get picked up, as they are needed for at least to try and take out anyone who dives in, like Tanuki. If they can break through the iron bulwark, they can set this up, pushing on forward, straggling prison, clobbering time onto Ken and Polly, both down. It's a quad coming in from RAD, chasing down Enzo to sagging him off the point, and with Alex down, there is no way they get back in time. That is just going to be RAD taking round number 1.
Yeah, it was just a nice combination. I mean, really, it was just a strangling prison. I think you do have the God of Mischief used from level 1 Crook, but the strangling prison and then just the Thing and Wolverine. Walk up, boys, they're all yours. And you see the Thing cracking his knuckles. It's a brutal one for BRR PATAPIM. And I think there were maybe some instances of just ultimates used in the wrong fight when these engagements are pretty clearly going wrong and then overemphasizing some bits of utility. But honestly, it is fine margins. We have to be nitpicky at this point, Tetchin, because both these teams are so good. It is some of the in-the-moment decision-making that's going to be making the difference. And I think one of the biggest differences is the fact that RAD having non-mirrored Loki and Wolverine, both of those characters could be so strong and very little counter to them.
It seems to be giving them a little bit of space, and it looks like Doctor Strange has been abandoned. Emma coming out, going for that double front line with the mutants. This is going to allow BRR PATAPIM a little more control over the front line. The Strange was getting caught by that Wolverine a fair amount. That diamond form of Emma is, of course, crowd control immune, so we'll be able to absorb at least some of those pickup attempts from Naga.
It's the same thing though, right? There's less barriers to deal with a Psionic Seduction, and also you can stop some of those ultimates coming through. You know that level 1 Crook is so good at farming up the God of Mischief consistently. He's got plenty of strategist ultimates to choose from to keep his team alive. Tanuki, more just posturing more than anything. He will have a bulwark potentially from Polly to just allow him to go in barrage, build up that ult speed, and it's already at 80%. It's going to be the Eternal Bond actually that's go time for RAD, and the final judgment to follow. It's putting a lot of strain onto the Vanguards. blocking his damage. The Meteor M wanted to try to shut down stuff, but Polly hasn't really had the chance to connect at all. But the other side are going to bring it out. Pokey with his final judgment. You see everybody trying to group together, surviving around the fate of both worlds from Alex to keep things going. And now Tanuki and Pokey finding the difference, finding this first point again first.
Lovely positioning by BRR PATAPIM, using those barriers, playing defensively. They use the magnetic curtain into Meteor M, into Mind's Aegis to absorb so much of that final judgment from Melio that then they knew so many tools had been burned. They could go in with Pokey and get the cleanup, as BRR PATAPIM will start to get some percentage on the board first. They are creeping their way into trying to even this up, and they still have Galactic Legend, Psionic Seduction, and the Invisible Boundary. But Naga is looking for that Canadian missile to see if they can pick someone up.
I think the plan is to use the Strangling Prison. Ken's got Invisible Boundary, but is it going to be enough healing to keep people going? The leap goes in and it's able to catch Polly. He's really on his own, and the Invisible Boundary, he's just on the radius of it. But Alex is the one that goes down first, so one of those major strategies to keep things going on the side of BRR PATAPIM isn't actually going to be needed. This is a complete clear-up for Benzo, the back of the Silent Seduction. Yet, like we mentioned, RAD not really having much to block it, just giving Tanuki and Pokey enough space, and also giving them plenty of charge to have those duelist ultimates again.
You couldn't have said it better. Just having nothing to stop this, no cover they can take. They can put down a wall, but again, the reactions have to be so good. And there's already a Punisher and a Star-Lord on the other side with incredible attack rates who can just start taking down those walls quickly, preventing any ability to avoid that Psionic Seduction. It's so hard for RAD to actually push in here when some of these ultimates are up, but they're still going to try and do so. Last Stand is at the ready. Galactic Legend being dropped early. What's the counter to this? They're going to drop the Eternal Bond to try and buy some time. Last Stand comes on out. They will get Enzo this time.
Oh, Polly goes down just to see a Meteor M, but this might work out for BRR PATAPIM of just, okay, we've used a Galactic Legend. They end up throwing an Eternal Bond out. That Last Stand, it's everything else I'm a little bit worried about, to be honest. Otechi, you got a Clobbering Time, Strangling Prison. A level 1 Crook is not too far away from another God of Mischief, so again, take your pick of what the strategists want to be using. It's the first time that RAD have been able to get on the board for this second part of the objective. Gotta worry a little bit more. And then BRR PATAPIM actually getting caught out by the aggression. Rajaro goes for the Clobbering Time, but he gets CC'd himself. Pokey takes him out with the shotgun, and they found themselves an opening by taking out one of the Vanguards.
Strangling Prison in the doorway, though, to try and hold the line to stop BRR PATAPIM pushing on in, but the fate of both worlds comes on out. Final judgment for even more crowd control and immunity pushing on in, and RAD are scattering to the winds. The Eternal Bond from level 1 Crook tries to buy time, but it's still enough to take out Melio. Trust me, fools, and this is RAD starting to get cleaned up off the board, but they still hold the percentage for just a couple seconds more, just getting over 50%. But with no Strange, how do they get back to the point in time? It's time to start picking some of those faster rollout characters. Naga chooses the Human Torch.
Nobody's actually changed over to the Strange.
They don't have it.
They're going to be able to touch. I mean, we need to go back. We need to see if this is going to be contested at all. It is. Overtime just thrown in from the thing, but Rajaro having to back out goes down immediately. Oh no, it's actually like BRR PATAPIM being able to use the time to their advantage, and surprisingly, that was uncontested for a good amount of that from RAD Tetra. I thought that there was going to be, you know, a minute brawl on the point, but it was just the two Vanguards touching, being instantly deleted, and not much else.
They charged in as fast as they could, but again, with those slower rollouts, they don't have the Captain America, they don't have the Doctor Strange, so they can't portal in. They could have tried to swap to Star-Lord, but they might have not made it in time. Naga's also a fairly okay speed-wise rollout on that Human Torch. The Thing is fairly fast. They tried everything just to try and reach in time, but at that point, it's so risky to do so. The Groot's going to be walking all the way from spawn. They just gave a attempt, see how it worked out, but the second those Vanguards went down, they knew it was over, and BRR are evening up the score.
All to play for. This is what any neutral wants. And these are two teams that have been in the shadows of Virtus Pro for so long, you can't not mention them at this rate. But now it's going to be history made. Might not necessarily be the champions of EMEA Ignite 1. We still need to see that yet, but a qualification point for the first ever international line in Marvel Rivals is history for EMEA. Well, that's certainly something. And Tanuki, seeing if he can get a bit of a flank. He's got the Idol Aura to help keep him alive. And with him being 70% on the Galactic Legend, one good barrage might be enough to actually get that ultimate online. And if that's paired with a Psionic Seduction, there might not be much to stop with. Naga goes in a bit deep, gets CC'd, forced to use some of those mitigation tools to keep himself alive. But look at the HP over on the scoreboard. It's like 1% that he's able to work with, and he's able to get out. Psionic Seduction going to be met in the face of that final judgment, but it's the Meteor M finally connecting from Polly. Finds himself an opening. Naga goes down off the back of the Carbon Crush, and BRR PATAPIM looking to take this point again.
Trust me, he's trying to delay, trying to buy time, but they will get cleaned out. It's going to be essentially a full team. White Melio went down quite early in that fight. Like you say, Polly passing that timing check to get the Meteor M in perfectly. And RAD, they realize it's time for a change. Something isn't working. We're seeing Naga move over to the Human Torch. They started on Storm to give their team a speed boost out of base, and then swapped over to the Torch so they could chase after them and rejoin in for the fight.
Naga needs to be very careful because he has swapped over with ultimate. He's not too far away from having a supernova, but he's already taken a lot of damage. Tanuki knows his role. It's just to basically control the skies to the best of their abilities, and he's able to get Crook actually in the backline. It's going to buy a lot more time now for BRR PATAPIM, and it's a bit of an in and out Schrodinger's push from RAD as they're not necessarily engaging, but I wouldn't say that they're up until now rushing to get out to safety, which means more time is being reset. I imagine the comms from RAD there, Tetcher, a little bit scattered.
Not able to make it in time. Like you say, they're moving in slowly. They're regrouping. They're trying not to get caught off alone, but it's still happening. Pokey's now able to set up on the high ground. Tanuki's still flanking, finding people who begin moving out towards this point, looking for yet another pickup if they can to keep the stagger going. Rajaro, of course, with no shields, is just having to march up as best they can while eating so much damage. One of the biggest hitboxes in the game between Groot and the Thing, and Pokey is just having a wonderful time.
It's easy farm in the end. Strangler Prison not really connecting onto much. BRR PATAPIM able to sidestep it, and with 5 ultimates, almost 6, not really required to use any. Clobbering time is going to be the go button for the fate of both worlds and the final judgment, and it just seems to be enough. This is 80% on the board, and RAD have a lot to work with. They've actually used a God of Mischief to try and keep things going with their own fate of both worlds. I think Fate has it to go if it's needed, but this again feels a little bit disconnected from RAD. Have they got the players on the point to actually go for the fight? Have they got that offensive tool? They have Supernova from Naga, but he goes down to 1 HP because Tanuki's too busy trying to hunt him down. That's why he's shooting the corners to see exactly where Naga's gone to, and Melio swapping over towards the Psylocke, having to go for a more subtle approach, and now it's just a case of rushing onto the point. Overtime looms, but it's still going to be BRR PATAPIM clearing up numbers. It's down to single-digit players from RAD holding on for dear life. No support ultimates, nothing to really rely on, and no time either. BRR PATAPIM able to go and fight out on Krakoa. They take the first map in this best of 5.
Very solid performance. After the first round, RAD were looking very powerful, but the adjustments came in from BRR purely with that Emma Frost. You mentioned no shields to stop it, the ability to lock down people when they tried to go in, forcing RAD off of that Wolverine for at least a little bit. It worked out, and with RAD being forced to move over to stuff like the Psylocke, they stuck with the Punisher, and even moving over to that Human Torch for a bit. They were really trying to just go for a more standard style of quick blow-up, but with the Torch in the air, just getting dueled out by Tanuki and pinged consistently by Pokey, they were never able to step up because they can't cause a distraction on the low ground as much as they want to, because they're so reliant on wombos on the low ground because they don't have shields to move in slowly and wait for opportunities.
And that's with Fate doing 46k's worth of healing. But it was still the final blows going in the direction of Pokey that did 35k damage, expected as Punisher. A lot of it usually is into shields, but there wasn't much shields to deal with. You've got 50k worth of damage blocked by Trust Me with just the walls alone, and then 30k from Rajaro with just his face. Honestly, that's really the only thing that he can rely on in those instances. But the 17 first blows for Pokey, Tanuki being able to get 11, even Polly was starting to get up to double digits when it came to just taking people out and down in the fights. It really was just too much focus damage. The coordination for BRR PATAPIM that we saw in droves yesterday against Virtus Pro, really not bailing them out, but just giving them the edge when some of those fights went a little bit more neutral. And RAD in that final point, it just seemed to be in and out. Not really sure how they wanted to engage in that fight. Looking a little bit nervous, I'd say.
They didn't seem to be able, like you said, to work out how they wanted to take these fights. And again, it's going to be difficult. You're stuck off of any of those big protection attacks, really having to rely on the Groot. If RAD had been able to get their wombos off, and when we saw that they did, they were dominant. When we got that straggling prison into the thing clobbering time, it was over. No one can move, no one can peel, no one can heal because everyone's in the sky and in some roots. There's not much you can...
Protecting Cap seems like a decent move in its own right, no? Like, it seems to... Yeah. Trust me, I guess out of all of the teams that we're seeing at this like top 6 level, maybe RAD are not the hypest on Cap in comparison, but they know that they need to deal with Poly. That's the major factor.
And RAD adjusting this time, they say, nope, not again, we would like a tank, please. And they have acquired themselves the Emma Frost. Make sure that they have a barrier in the form of that Mine's Aegis, which means they have a little bit more protection, but this means BRR BRR PATAPIM can flip the script and have acquired themselves a Loki. Now the question is, will RAD attempt to mirror the attempt of BRR BRR PATAPIM earlier and try to focus out some of these vanguards? There is still an opportunity for them to ban both Emma and that Magneto, but they have given up on at least one of those as they focus instead on this ban for the Punisher.
I mean, the ban for the captain is going to come in for BRR BRR PATAPIM. It's a consistent one, even if you know that the team that you're playing up against isn't too hot on it. You know, Rajaro can certainly pull it out as and when needed. Something that you always have to just keep in your back foot. And now, yep, it's going to be the Emma Frost unmirrored on one side. So there's the Magneto that is almost required to protect from BRR BRR PATAPIM. Otherwise, you are sort of lacking barriers yourself. So it feels like it's sort of more focused on trying to get the most out of the Vanguards here, but neither team's really been offensive on Vanguards because there's only so much they can do. But they're not really gunning for the strategists either. It's only Loki that's been banned out thus far from that role, I suppose. Wolverine would make sense. RAD did it last time. Maybe to protect to follow, potentially? Oh no, they're going to switch to Cloak.
Cloak's still going to be extremely powerful. It gives a lot of flexibility into these drafts and is a great copy for the Loki. So it's a safe removal here for the side of RAD. Now, what do they choose to protect? They've got themselves this Emma. The Torch could be extremely powerful here. This is a good map for it, as there's some great corners where you can take good cover. But the Torch is also empowered by the Lunar Snow, as are a lot of other characters, like, for example, Psylocke. This is something that BRR BRR PATAPIM like to run, but RAD have been known to play a little bit of backline sniping as well, and with that Lunar Snow going to be protected, we see BRR BRR PATAPIM realizing how much of a threat a constantly being healed Human Torch in the sky would be. They decide it's safer to take it away.
Both teams not really focused on protecting a particular role. Last game, it was a strategist and a duelist. Punisher, Wolverine, and then the Loki Luna. Here it is, one Vanguard, one strategist. So you can tell that these teams are really balancing out. We don't want to really just lose too much option-wise with strategist ultimates. They sustain to keep ourselves alive and going. Naga could have a field day here if what we're seeing locked in from RAD is going to come to fruition. Having the Idol Aura and a drone from the Ultron perhaps means that he's going to be a happy body diving in around. That obviously puts a lot of focus onto him finding space, and up against the Loki on the other side, it's a little bit harder to dive. Be a little bit nerve-wracking, but regardless, this was RAD picking the map, also picking the side themselves on Halls of Djalia. Yet to see a win actually come out of PATAPIM so far. They've played it twice, they've lost it twice. They picked it once against Virtus Pro, and well, didn't quite work.
Let's see if the adjustment works out, if RAD have done their research and it will pay off for them. Poly going in for a little bit of a dive themselves with that Venom for a little bit of backline pressure. As we will see RAD making their way out. Like you said, the Ultron comes on in. Melio has shown that they have incredible map awareness on this Ultron to try and keep the pressure on. Pokey immediately spotting Trust Me. Gonna put a little bit of harassment onto them as Trust Me comes on in, forcing Pokey to back away. Poly also on this Venom on the backline is looking to see if they can sneak around and also guarding these doorways in case anyone tries to take the flank.
Mirrored Venom. Mostly because the Captain America's not available, and if you want to try and play a little bit divey, especially when you got Pokey and Tanuki trying to get into the backline and find some picks, Poly's best option is probably going to be over onto the Venom in the right places. But Tanuki, the barrage is connecting indoors. It's going to force Naga back out into this fight. And with all of these Idol Auras and Melio being able to put the drone on his teammates, might not actually matter too much, as Cook is the first one to go down. The Vanguard's able to trade out onto Ken and Poly. And this attack offensive side from RAD is going to cap the point in record time, it feels like, Tetcher.
No respect for the 1v1 there from Trust Me as Naga and Pokey entered into the dueling setup, and Trust Me rolls on in, frenzied arrival, and is gonna lock in that first point. RAD with some great speed and momentum. Over 5 minutes left. They take control, the bar statue is activated, and they're gonna try making their way in. BRR BRR PATAPIM, they've brought out the Star-Lord for a little bit of dueling potential. Need to be very careful though, as it is still a potentially squishier character, especially with no Adam Warlock to come in to give it that revive potential.
Ooh, Dance the Butterflies from Pokey, trying to maintain a little bit of control from this defensive side, but it's only going to force out the Rage of Ultron for one and the Fate of both worlds. Soul Resurgence available for Mantis as well if they want to go a little bit more aggressive, but it might be the Inspire just put on the Feast of the Abyss from Trust Me. No eliminations though. It wants to copy over to have your own Fate of both worlds from Ken, and Alexis is about to follow, but there's the Dance the Butterflies just sat on from Naga for the entirety of that. A little bit more forward fire coming in from Melio means that backline's been taken out, and they get Alex just before they have the Fate of both worlds. This payload is moving at pace.
RAD is seeming today like an incredibly momentum-based team, as every time they have taken an early advantage, they have started snowballing super hard. But when they've struggled a little bit earlier, we've started to see BRR BRR PATAPIM not give them an inch. We'll see if this continues as we go on, as the portal's coming out for Enzo. BRR BRR PATAPIM going to try and go for the contest. They still have this Fate of both worlds, Galactic Legend, and Feast from the Abyss, not building up to that wombo combo between the Psylocke and the Venom here. Fate of both worlds for the defense. Rajaro has the Psionic Seduction, which means once this expires, they can commit to go in for this push. Feast from the Abyss to chase down Luna and takes out Fate and Melio.
It's seen a bit more poly on this. It's typically been Enzo, but I think with the Magneto available, you kind of want Enzo to be on the barrier shields. He's has to be on the Strange to go for the portal play. And Tanuki, Pokey clearing up the backlines, getting both Duelist Ultimates online for this next engagement, and you do have that God of Mischief too. So RAD maybe trying to look for this engagement a different way so far. Right, when it comes to damage, actually, it's Pokey that's just beating out Naga in this head-to-head. But Naga getting more eliminations. He's currently 7-1.
Pokey sitting already charged up. Same for Naga. Which one will be looking for this backline engaged defensive abilities? We have the God of Mischief. We have the Rage of Ultron. Silent Seduction is going to be used quite quickly here. And Pokey will get Fate, but that is about it. Forcing out the Rage of Ultron. If they can get the blow up onto Melio in the sky here, it could be huge. But no, with the help of Trust Me, they take out Pokey, forcing them back. But finally, Tanuki on the flank with the help of the healing from Ken on that God of Mischief, Fate of both worlds. Dives on in, takes the 1v1, forcing Naga to drop another Dance of the Butterflies for defensive purposes, but the Galactic Legend is now uncontested and melting anyone who steps out from cover.
Ooh, actually, that's a big pick, actually. That might have just saved the backline a little bit more and given life for RAD to go for this next engagement. The strategists are shooting him straight out of the sky. Enzo switching back to the Magneto, having a Meteor M in pretty much no time is going to take out Krug, finishing the work that Tanuki was trying to do with a little bit more of an impact and a bit more of a full stop. Pokey just providing a couple more picks to keep RAD on the reset, but with the Fate of both worlds, it's enough to keep them going. The copy is going to be over, and Feast of the Abyss coming in from Poly, going aggressive, trying to go for the grab, and it's able to get onto Fate. The clear up was good. The God of Mischief keeping people alive from BRR BRR PATAPIM. Great work from them to hold on this defense, but that was close.
They burned through a lot of RAD's time back, starting onto the second point with over 5 minutes. They are down to less than 2, but they only have a few more meters to push on in. RAD regrouping, they have the Silent Seduction. Once again, it's opened up a lot of push every time they've used it so far, but BRR BRR PATAPIM so far have been very hard to pin down, playing very split with Pokey and Poly diving in. Tanuki on flanks. Here comes Dance of the Butterfly coming in from Pokey onto the backline, but the Soul Bond from Fate is there just protects most of the team. Level 1 Crooked Naga, though, will still fall. They just don't have to sustain fighting. Trust Me gets the counter pickup onto Pokey as Poly is forced to retreat into their team, forcing the Fate of both worlds. They want to try to hold this on the line, looking for Crook to chase them down, but they find Mantis on the flank.
Ooh, Poly's going to find a lot in the backline, and him and Tanuki are connecting very well. Rajaro, they're making sure that it's not just going to be a clean engagement, and you can see that they're trading either side. But as PATAPIM, they get to breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief, get to back out a little bit more. Galactic Legend is ready. Feast of the Abyss from Poly could be disruptive. He's not got that Captain America, but the dive has been super successful. Pokey and Tanuki being able to follow up. But now you have to sort of look. Naga having a Dance of the Butterflies on one side. Alex not having ultimate. Ken 40% from having a God of Mischief.
Looking for the opening. Here comes that Rage of Ultron to try and create an opening, but they're getting dove here. Meaning Ultron is forced to reposition, but Melio is extremely good at these duels, but the focus is insane. Has to use that Imperative Firewall. Fate drops low, but that's a beautiful Soul Resurgence from Crook to try and give them the opportunity to push on in. Meteor is popped and down goes Enzo. The laser from Melio getting the pickup, and that is RAD absolutely walking into the Temple of Bast.
He didn't even use the Dance of the Butterflies, and now everything is farmed up. RAD struggled so much to regain that second point, and so much time can be bought, especially if you lose out just before the end of that second objective. We've already seen just how much time was eventually wasted by BRR BRR PATAPIM, but you have the Feast of the Abyss, you have the Dance of the Butterflies, whilst yeah, you have some more supportive elements built up for BRR BRR PATAPIM, a camera revival for Fate at the right time. You keep this fight going forever.
Plus the Butterfly dropped quite early once again from Pokey, trying to get into the back lane, picks up the double, but Karmic Revival coming on out for Fate. It's the reinforcements time as RAD are going to try and make their way into the point, Feast from the Abyss to look for the turnaround. Trust me, on the counter side, Naga with the Dance of the Butterflies. They go for the one-shot wombo, but they only find Enzo. Ken is trying to keep the team topped up, and it's going to be a 2-for-0 after those revives come on through. RAD looking for an opening, the Psionic Selection comes on out, Pokey is out of there. Alex is pulled on in. This is RAD creating another opening. It's a very staggered defense for BRR BRR PATAPIM as they're forced to respawn, but they have the Venom. They can buy a lot of time here, hiding in a lamp.
Oh, this is scary now. And Tanuki trying to make sure that Trust Me can't find more space, and in fact Trust Me is just going to close the distance a little bit more, not afraid to get aggressive now that these sightlines are a little bit more spotted, and Soul Resurgence from level 1 Krug can really put the end to this map. It's going to hit overtime, so 0 seconds is going to be on the board, but finishing it out for RAD gives them a plenty of opportunity. Tanuki taking out 10% away from having that Star-Lord ultimate means that you don't really have much that's going to clear off this engagement. Everybody's grouping up on the side of RAD, but Polly's managed to find an opening. Unfortunately, it's going to be that Soul Perseverance that's going to bring Fate back. His passive that he's able to get himself, and Krug not needing to resurrect himself. In fact, he's going to send BRR BRR PATAPIM back to the spawn doors. The dash through is going to be enough, and it's fully capped out from RAD with 0 time to spare.
RAD opening up there. Like you said, they struggled on that second point for quite a while, but they slowly adjusted their characters, bringing out the Mantis and the Adam Warlock in order to give them that extra revive potential. And that gave them a slow but steady setup to build up those ultimates, create an opening, and make their way into the temple. And after that, it was essentially pure momentum. RAD just making their way forward, picking off everyone on the flank. Survive. They got taken down by Pokey, but Karmic Revival is a pretty good ability, Ryan.
Yeah, and I mean also the other side of it as well is because of the super dive-centric composition that BRR BRR PATAPIM's running, having the Soul Bond from Adam Warlock really helps out in a lot of those situations. You don't have the low-key available for you, which is very good. Just regeneration domain if you get dove on. There's multiple clones healing people out. That can really save you when you're dove on by the likes of a Venom or Tanuki on the Star-Lord, or of course the Psylocke. But the Star-Lord just being able to hold their own, it was a really well-played Karmic Revival, and BRR BRR PATAPIM probably saw dollar signs in their eyes when they see the Karmic Revival in front of them. They just didn't have enough damage to take everybody out again after they used Feast of the Abyss and the Galactic Legend. It's just too much to deal with, and now RAD on this defense, they full held against Virtus Pro. That led to them taking that series 2-0 in the end. I want to be trying to do the same as BRR BRR PATAPIM could set some really nice times on attack. But the Spider-Man play
all out strat. They tried again, but it's not going to work out. 2 attempts so far, 0 pickups, but they did actually land the shot this time. They just didn't get the pull off the map. Trust me, now going to be swapping immediately back over to the Venom, but with that portal coming on out, they have to hurry. Will they get the rollout correct this time and make their way back for the objective in time? As everyone from the side of BRR BRR PATAPIM making their way onto the point, up to the high ground, finding the isolated members of RAD away from the rest of the team. They're committed to this. With that Ultron drone, though, trying to take that fight is going to be a lot more difficult, and they get punished for it. Trust Me arrives back to help take out Alex, and BRR BRR PATAPIM are cleaned up.
Melio saying call an ambulance, but not for me. You saw Pokey just wanted to get a little bit more aggressive to try and take out Naga that was low, but he had the Idol Aura and the drone on him, and then Melio was still carving into people. That pseudo-strategist duelist role is only going to set up a player like Melio, who is just mechanically so gifted and has such a prospering like career ahead of him. He's almost got that Rage of Ultron, and that first fight for BRR PATAPIM, especially with the portal dedication not going their way at all. Not quite built any ultimates up just yet, but Tanuki trying to get that Galactic Legend on board.
Trying to charge on up to push on in. Enzo leading the front line here on this Doctor Strange. Once that shield gets burst down, they could be in a little bit of trouble, as of course that price of magic means they get anti-healed if they don't burn out that Maelstrom of Madness very quickly, meaning they will receive a lot less healing. Rage of Ultron into the choke point to try and set this up, taking a lot of damage themselves, but the Fade of Both Worlds is denying this. Here comes the Blaster Barrage from Tanuki, using the healing from the Fade of Both Worlds to make sure that they stay top in this without getting that barrier from Magneto. Up to the high ground for the Duelist, down to the Butterfly, into the backline. That is a karmic revival to bring back Rajaro, but fate will fall. They're going to need to bring themselves back into Cocoon to get Rajaro back in this fight. No, they leave it.
It's gone down twice, though, so he's not going to be available in this engagement. Melio's gone down too, so BRR PATAPIM actually having enough about them to send some people actually back to spawn. Not going to be brought back by any passives or the Kamut revival, but there's still not enough numbers yet to really be put in progression on the point. There's somebody on it. They've almost managed to grab 30%, and Pokey's going to be able to help. He's brought down to low HP, and it is that Psylocke 1 versus 1. Not really too much to rely on in the end, but the rest of BRR PATAPIM backing him up. Is this going to be a contest from RAD? Because they do have a couple of people here. Yeah, they're going to try and go and fight for this, even if they're buying a bit more time. Your Tanuki just brought out the Spider-Man to try and get a little bit more, pulling people onto the objective. If you're going to try and jump into the lake, RAD, you might as well. The water's fine. Trying to see if they can get some connections together. And we see the fate of the Abyss from Trust Me, trying to get onto connections. The fate of both worlds from Alex, keeping people alive. And Pokey's the one that's going to shut this one down, put it to bed. The last alive is going to be Trust Me. And the portal play not quite working for RAD's recontest.
And finally, BRR PATAPIM able to take the point. Tanuki with the quick rollout on that Spider-Man just to make sure that they could touch the point in time. Naga was able to hold for a cup for an extra second, but they'll be chased down and picked off. RAD forced to regroup as they are forced into the defensive position. BRR PATAPIM took a couple attempts, but they were able to create the opening.
This fight for RAD is everything. If they mess it up, BRR PATAPIM is going to have a lot more time on the board, and that momentum is still going to go. You win this fight, you can end the map here and there. Then you got to see the regeneration domain come out on this defensive side of BRR PATAPIM. Following straight away is that God of Mischief, but you still lose Tanuki in the process. I think he was looking around to see if he could catch something on the dive, and his partner of Polly is also going to be eliminated. That backline protected from RAD. The pull away for BRR PATAPIM, they may be overextended. They got a little bit too overeager in taking space that they've lost enough numbers that this is a really good contesting point for RAD.
They get Trust Me, but that's a character who will respawn and get back into the fight extremely quickly with the speedy rollouts. RAD, though, with that member down, they choose to back up a little bit, but not too much. Moving to defend. The Ultron drone with that imperative patch. Healing up Rajaro, making it very difficult to take them down as in comes that Psionic Seduction for the setup right away. Naga creeping in, seeing if they can find someone the second that ultimate expires. Ayamagamoto to set up onto Venom, but Carbon Crush to lock down Enzo. It's enough to take out Trust Me, though, and level 1 Crook is going to be burst down as well, but they come back with another karmic revival from Fate.
Up on the high ground, and Tanuki's saying that he can go a little bit higher, making sure the people have to reset again, muddying the stats for them potentially, but it might give BRR PATAPIM a chance to take the second map. Pokey as well, combining just in the nick of time. You'd see some teams not really want to put their duelist ultimates together, but if it can clean up house like it did for RAD, even with the karmic revival, it can get things moving. But a minute and a half on the clock, Tetcher. One more good engagement for RAD. They don't really have much outside of that Rage of Ultron that's going to be ready straight away.
That will be available for the fight, but on the other side, we have that Feast from the Abyss, and we have the God of Mischief, aka any defensive ability that they choose. Rage of Ultron's going to be burned extremely early as Venom dives to the backline, but Melio already forced to back away. They're getting pressured, but they do find Pokey on the flank. Fate of both worlds going to be coming out from Ken as they want to make sure that they commit to this fight. This is the God of Mischief version. Polly into the backline, looking for those strategies for anyone they can get, and it's enough to take down Crook. Melio is going to get finished off as well by Tanuki, and BRR PATAPIM, one by one, are working their way through RAD as the car continues to move forward. Rajaro going to march onto the point. They're going to keep everything they can for the defense side of seduction to try and burn on through, but taken out before they get the chance. That is going to be BRR PATAPIM pushing on through. There's some defensive abilities being used, but there's not enough beef on the board. With not enough HP, not enough bodies, Karmic Revival comes out, but unless Venom can hold this for the last couple seconds, they're delaying it. They're trying to turn this round, but a fate of both worlds, and Aya Vagamoto is trying to shut them down on the point. Trust me, it's going down. RAD are just going down one by one, down to the butterfly, but they don't have bodies. Trust me, it's still not going down, but how long can they hold this out? The answer is about 40 seconds as finally RAD fall and BRR PATAPIM take point 2.
Pokey and Tanuki are just almost finishing each other's sentences at this point. 25 final hits for Pokey. He's leading the line with that. Tanuki's not too far behind, but I want to highlight Pokey's Feast of the Abyss. He baits out Fate to use the Soul Bond, sees that level 1 Crook goes out of distance, that he's basically isolated, and then it's an easy meal for him to pick up that fight. It really set up everything else, and he's been absolutely stellar over on this Venomous engagement. You see the Rage of Ultron use, Ken have it to quickly snap back to make sure that he gets that copy over with a God of Mischief. Feast of the Abyss this time for Polly, not quite getting any eliminations off the rip at least, but Tanuki is just playing off the back of it so well that this is continuing on. This could be another like overtime push for BRR PATAPIM. They have to finish the map Tetcher.
BRR PATAPIM are trying to make their way in. If they force the overtime by hitting the 3rd point, then currently they do have a couple extra seconds, but they need to keep going. With only 30 seconds left, Feast of the Abyss comes on out. Fate already down. Trust me, drops low once again. Pokey is finding so many people though. Dance of the Butterfly, frenzied arrival! It is gonna be BRR PATAPIM cleaning up again, and Fate is so close to that Karmic Revival, but everyone's already respawning. There's no point to burn it now, but luckily the card has not yet reached that central hall room, so there is still a chance to make it out of spawn and to dive that cart.
Tanuki's taking up a lot of space there. Needs to be a little bit more careful with where he's taking that engagement, and Polly also going very deep at this point. Gonna force the Adam Warlock all the way back. He does have a Karmic Revival, but he can't use it if he's in his spawn, so that's a lot of space created. Silent Seduction going to be used, and Enzo having the barrier is going to go for the Eye of Agamotto. It connects onto 2. Level 1 Crook taken out straight away. The follow-up has always been really good in these engagements, but trust me, was also the other one that was stunned out, still able to keep on fighting. Both Venoms looking for a good engagement. Feast of the Abyss gets sedated, so it's a bit more of a waiting time for Polly as overtime is starting to loom. You've got the Galactic Legend trying to take out people, but actually the picks are going the other direction. RAD have found themselves 4, so BRR PATAPIM only having Polly on the point. Everybody's disappeared. The time is about to wind down, and RAD just in the nick of time, able to keep Halls of Djalia their own. We're even on the series, and we've got a game on our hands.
Karmic Revival coming in to bring back that Mantis to give the damage boost over to the Venom so they can commit to that fight. Dance of the Butterfly coming out in the last possible moment to clean that up, and RAD even up the score after an incredibly aggressive setup, a little bit of a slower middle, and then a hyper aggressive finish, showing that they have the momentum. In this case, it was just all about burning through BRR PATAPIM's time as consistently, and they did so beautifully.
Look at the damage from across the board. You got to say Rajaro as well. 33k over on the Emma Frost. Seems to be like why they're so popular. 37k for
31
Pokey.
final hits for Pokey.
Yeah, on the losing side as well for Pokey. I mean, he was just like a gun dog, being able to sniff out who was low and just make sure that they go down. But it still wasn't enough. It was really just a case of the fine margins in that final fight. Maybe BRR PATAPIM just overextended in that fight. We were looking at Polly's perspective so much that we didn't really get to see what RAD threw at the backline. Everybody seemed to just go down in that final engagement, and we're probably the same as Polly of like, oh guys, I got 2. Wait, where is everyone? Where did you all go? Oh no. And it was just that was it. One false move, and that is it for the map of Halls of Djalia, and Team RAD continuing on this good run of form.
I'm sure the chat, who, as we all know, is universally a super big fan of the ResCom, are going to be absolutely thrilled about this. There's definitely no dissent in that statement at all. As they are, once again, Karmic Revivals, you can see it being burned there on a beautiful angle and Pokey. Normally, you've seen Pokey and Sparker and the Psylocke like that just try to track down the Adam Warlock, but Fate was just constantly on unexpected angles, finding beautiful spots, and with so much pressure already on Pokey to be following Polly and to get these pickups, you see the 1v1 coming in there. And once again, Pokey does find Fate, but it's all the times when they did a Cocoon brings them back, Karmic Revivals to get second revives. Tanuki's having a lovely time on their own, but the pressure was on Pokey to keep finding that Adam Warlock, and they weren't able to do so every time.
Yeah, that dance of the butterflies. I mean, that should have been it with 20 seconds on the clock, being able to push to the end of the map. But unfortunately, you saw like the Karmic Revival play as well, right? Like where they sort of push in, Karmic Revival brings people back, and it's the Venom, and I think Pokey was there as well. One thing that I didn't spot at the moment that sort of changed out that fight was just Rajaro's like Aegis, the shield from Emma Frost, to be able to block stuff off, because we saw the Venom go in for the fight. Okay, we're back to Rad being able to ban out the Loki first, similar to what we saw on Krakoa a little bit beforehand. For the side of Patapim, their first move is a pretty obvious one. Seems to be Magneto as the first ban that's always taken out, and I think quite wisely, if we see Rad banning out a Vanguard, Patapim protect a Vanguard. If a strategist is banned out, we see them ban out a strategist, much like they have here. And this is where Rad, I think, did really put Patapim into a corner on Krakoa with taking out the Wolverine and the Loki and probably protecting the Loki here themselves. It might be just a question of Patapim not really caring that much like they did last time.
We'll have to see is right now. Rad are not... Ooh, they are going to take the risk of BRR Patapim taking out all the Vanguards again. As Rad, they mirror what they did in the earlier series, and they protect the Loki, giving BRR Patapim that possibility to start going heavy on the shield bans. And hello, here comes the Emma Frost ban.
I mean, I think that's the right move. I think first banning out Loki and then not protecting it first feels like you're sort of missing the trick, right? That you're not making the most out of such an aggressive move. And now here, it was the double cat ban. It seems that BRR Patapim are going to commit to that, much like they did over onto Jalia. But we've seen Rad actually experiment a little bit more. Last time they took out the Emma Frost first and then the Punisher beforehand. Now, they're actually going to protect themselves to Doctor Strange, because they know that if they give up too many strategists, they need a shield.
I love this Punisher ban. They realize that if they're going to get targeted heavily on the Vanguards once again, then their biggest threat is the Punisher. If they try to play the Thing, Punisher, big hit plus big hitbox equals lovely time. If they played the Groot, Punisher plus walls equals lovely time. You want to make sure that you have something, so you make sure that you are protecting at least a shield character, in this case the Doctor Strange, and you're taking away one of your bigger counters for whatever you pick second. There is, of course, as we do see BRR Patapim finally able to get onto that Captain America, we do still have the possibility for Rad, if they chose to go in for something a little saucier. They have the Hulk available to them here.
Oh yeah, we've seen a lot more of that recently, and the combination as well with Namor, but I think that right now Tanuki has a lot of freedom. Wolverine is going to be available on either side, because I do think that in that Virtus Pro game, that's what really started to take the reins of the game a little bit more. So it does provide a little bit more space for both these teams now that they're down a few more Vanguards. That the likes of Trust Me being able to go to Groot feels a lot safer. You're not at risk from the skies, I suppose, when you're just playing Groot the Thing. Just all of the damage that you have to absorb means that the Strange is able to protect stuff just a little bit more. But this has been a good map historically for Patapim. 3-0 on it, and I think that last win against Virtus Pro was probably the more surprising and eye-opening. It means that you have to really take this one seriously. Larico is a map that we've actually seen Rad pick in the past. It's going to be a very aggressive hold, it looks like, and I guess it has to be on these convoy maps. Getting in deep and wasting as much time as possible is going to be the name of the game for Rad.
Groot going to be picked up for Trust Me. Going to try and zone away, like we already mentioned, with a lot less in terms of Vanguard options. The Groot is still extremely strong. And of course, with that Punisher taken away, they have a little bit more flexibility. BRR BRR PATAPIM expecting a full spawn hold, and they're not super incorrect here. Have picked up the Squirrel Girl to try and break the siege, to try and just force their way into this backline. But they're up against a Loki, a Cloak and Dagger, and a Adam Warlock. Triple strategist with at least a Rare's potential later on. They could be in trouble if they aren't able to at least get some burst onto the backline, which is what Tanuki's job's going to be.
Tanuki going onto the Black Panther, started to see this a little bit more. I mean, in Americas, we saw Black Panther banned out first against Self, which makes a lot of sense, but BRR BRR PATAPIM just cannot get out of the spawn doors here. Rather have been sat on this clearly and have the strategy to waste as much time as possible. And honestly, the only ultimate that you've built up at this point is the Squirrel Tsunami for Ken, so how much success are you realistically going to find off the back of that?
Here it comes into the backline, trying to go to the strategist, and it is wiped immediately. The reaction time from RAD. Here comes the Eternal Bond to try and just create even more danger, literally standing in front of the doorway, trying to just put some pressure on and keep them trapped inside. Draggling Prison comes on out from the flanking Tanuki solo, just out of pure principle at this point. Silent Seduction comes on out, but that strange shield and the Groove Wall set them up beautifully. Level 1 Crook with the second setup of the Eternal Bond. This is RAD on a solid hold. How far have they gone? 6 meters.
Half the time has almost been used, and they've gone barely a step for this colossal tree man to try and find a little bit more of the space. So much is being used. These ultimates rotated out, and Polly now trying to just get out of the doors a little bit more off the back of the Freedom Charge. There's a lot more that's coming through, and the Eye of Agamotto I don't really think connects onto that much, as we see another Squirrel Tsunami come all the way through. And the picks at least allowing some more space for PATAPIM to get things going again. But Naga, I was a little bit worried he was going to come out with a camera revival there to bring everybody back, but he is caught in the end for BRR BRR PATAPIM. Finally, they can get stuff going.
BRR BRR PATAPIM, their way of breaking that hold was to charge up and then use every single ultimate they had except for the Blast Descent. That is not a great side. If you require that many resources, what happens? We immediately see Rajamo swap to who was already on this strange story, portal in and set up the team for a solid team.
Tanuki.
And there go, wow, there go RAD as BRR BRR PATAPIM, this time turning it around. Karmic Revival on the other side of the gate, but Naga's just taken down again, brings back the team, which means they are delaying even longer, but the team was basically wiped. Their portal expired, and BRR BRR PATAPIM keep moving.
Wait, so they Karmic Revivaled on the other side of the portal, and then the portal closed?
I think so. I think like the Adam Warlock jumped through, got picked off, and then the portal expired before anyone else could make it through.
I mean, unlucky, I guess, if that's the case. For RAD, it's fine. You've got both of your other strategist ultimates to be working with, and Fate is going aggressive with that Eternal Bond. Nobody's going to try and chase him down. You've got 3 people that are ready to go and die for a fight, and Enzo is the one that's trying to make some noise with the Silent Seduction, pull people apart, and you can see waiting in the wings, looming above. Tanuki trying to see if he can jump on and find the right pick, and now would be a good time actually, as rather trying to go onto the offensive. The dash throughs are good, but it's more of a dash to escape and reset. A lot of space has to be given up, just off of the back of the Eternal Bond, and then level 1 Crook gun for the God of Mischief.
They've only got 19 seconds left. In comes Polly with the Freedom Charge for that extra bonus health that will tick up every couple seconds. Starts the butterfly to the backline. And with Tanuki, the bastard said, it is RAD. Absolutely wiped off the board. And once again, BRR BRR, they just charged up and burned basically everything at about the same time. And they claim another point.
Enzo was the one that went down in that engagement, but everybody else was able to clear up. Tanuki, the most final blows alongside Pokey. Not quite on 50 eliminations and looking to lose just yet, but now he has that freedom, and it's the Black Panther paired up with the Psylocke and then the Captain America to just find the right targets to dive on. So RAD need to be very careful about this. They want to play quite close together because of the Adam Warlock. You want that Soul Bond to sort of divvy out the damage as much as possible, but it might be a bit too much to deal with on the other side as the final judgment, pretty much with nothing to deal with it for BRR BRR PATAPIM, nothing to get in the face of it. It's going to shut down this payload. With just under 2 minutes left on the clock, this fight is going on a little bit long for BRR BRR PATAPIM. They want to be resetting as much as possible, but I guess notably they don't end up using more ultimates.
BRR PATAPIM have lost significantly more fights than RAD have, but every time BRR PATAPIM have won a fight, they have proceeded to get about half or more of an objective, meaning that if they take 2 fights per point, then they get the point every time. And already they're about halfway through as RAD move on in for the defensive position, and BRR PATAPIM are building up towards that ult chain once again. As Tanuki in the backline, here comes the Eternal Bond from Ken to help follow up. Blast descent into the hallway, but the Lokis are hanging out together. They can't find a single finishing blow.
What are we watching? This guy is just dip diving and dodging around, and the Dance the Butterfly is almost matching the speed that Tanuki was moving at. Just across the screen, it was hard to keep an eye on him. But that combination, yet again, finding so much. Rajaro can only hold on for a split second more. And the Karmic Revival going to be used from Naga, but he's shut down immediately. These aren't working for Naga at all. Rad can't get the Adder Warlock ultimates working today. At least on this map.
It's a full cooldown. Naga back to 3%. They're not finding these, like you said. They're getting punished in this setup. But there is the chance, if they wanted to, for level 1 Crook to clone it. But they need it for these Eternal Bonds. As they're setting up, they can now swap too quickly. Dark Force teleport, get back to the team, and then Terracate into that front line. In the meantime, Melio is looking for anyone who steps up onto the top of this ramp. They're getting run down here. Bastard Center just clean up. BRR PATAPIM are creating space once again with 11 seconds left. It's a casual stroll for the Groot, empowered with the spirit of Krakoa to help continue saving our Rocco and to help BRR PATAPIM keep marching towards that 3rd point.
Ooh, they lose Fate at the same time. So that's just going to be a bit more time made, and really it could just be meters on this 3rd part of the map. Really can be the difference here, and it's the fact that BRR PATAPIM are doing it with panache. They're doing it with such style, and a Dance to the Butterfly's Freedom Charge means that this momentum can keep building up. You got the Eternal Bond for Ken, and both him and Fate have been sending these Eternal Bonds pretty much to the backlines. They're trying to cut people out, but you can see just how much this has to be measured from BRR PATAPIM. They can't just run in the Silent Seduction, trying to create a little bit more space. Backed up into this corner, the alcove is RAD, and they're forcing themselves back a little bit more. Final Judgment, almost a plea to create a bit more space for them, but Ken is going to run right through them with this Eternal Bond.
Eye of Agamotto from above to try and lock down Ken, but the healing output is just too much, and this is a familiar sight. Everyone from BRR PATAPIM is marching forward. Everyone from RAD is in the spawn room, and it's just a snowball. What can RAD do to adjust to this? They're trying to drop these regeneration domains, but they're only protecting them for so long, and the cooldown's long enough that BRR PATAPIM just keep cleaning them up with 14 seconds remaining, and a Dance to the Butterfly and Blast Descent about to be available. This might be enough for BRR PATAPIM to clean on up.
Oh, are they going to be able to touch a point? They've had to back off of it completely. Is anybody going to be able to touch? Somebody does. Tanuki, he has balls of steel to not just scream and panic and dive onto the point himself here, but regeneration domain going to be used, and trust me, he's found himself free. He's carved up the backline, and whilst this is a good finish on the map texture, I'm looking at Jose Tajalia and going, finishing the map might have been a necessity at this rate.
RAD have showed how good they are when it comes to aggressive pushes by being the attacking team. How do they adjust this composition? How do BRR PATAPIM adjust? Will they be sticking with this Black Panther to just try and get in behind people and clean up? Looks like so far, yes, it was extremely effective, being able to just take out these backliners. It helps prevent Naga with those revives consistently with the help of Pokey, and they're just going to stick with hyper-aggression as their strategy.
I've said it before, but I love the music on this map.
Agreed.
It does change the tone of what we're talking about here, which is a little bit more tense, a little bit more serious. These teams are 1-1. Best of 5, whoever wins is the first team that's booked a ticket at least to the mid-season finals in China.
Get ready.
And there's already a good prize pool for winning EMEA Ignite, but I think it's, what, $500,000 for winning mid-season finals, if I remember correctly? Obviously, the total prize pool is $3 million here, but getting a good chunk of this at the first international event, you're a part of history. And that's what both these teams are going to be working towards. RAD also wanted to break history by bringing BRR PATAPIM their first loss over on this map since the introduction of it into Ignite. Really, it's a case of, yeah, BRR PATAPIM have to have an aggressive hold like we just saw from RAD as well, right?
Absolutely right. They need to try and be playing far up, and you can already see that on the flank. You were right, by the way. 250 grand per region. First place getting 70 grand of it. So it's just that is just for the region, not even the mid-season. So every win is important. Tanuki already just sliding through. It's like a jump scare, like a cryptid, just appearing on your screen so quickly that you can't even get a screenshot.
So much space has already been created in BRR PATAPIM because they are trying to dive. They're trying to spread out this fight as much as possible. Looking over towards Naga, he's going to be hit by some of the healing over from Cloak and Dagger. Tanuki, the dash kids are connecting. Pokey's finding the picks, but Polly has gone down, but it's still resetting, maybe forcing out the regeneration domain if it's not available. You're looking for a little bit of lethal pressure, but none is going to form as this payload is just trucking along nicely. A minute has passed and it's managed to hit 70 meters, 10 times more than we saw from BRR PATAPIM.
The Eternal Bond creating the pathway for them to go on in. Rajaro gets frozen out here, but still looking for the opening. Alex keeping the team topped up. Here comes the Draggling Prison. The opportunity for Rad to try and get that first point, but Pokey on the flag is looking for that. Doesn't butterfly, gets healed up completely. Level 1 Crypt creating some healing, creating once again another path. Utilizing the clone of that Eternal Bond of the Cloak and Dagger, Silent Seduction from the top rope to set up for the Dance of the Butterfly to prevent the defenses from being cast, and they clean them up again. Rada once again back in the spawn room, and BRR PATAPIM are on the point, but this time sending it backwards.
That was a resolute approach from BRR PATAPIM. It seemed that they were okay, they're going to use Eternal Bond. Let's let them. They get another 10 meters, that's fine. Okay, level 1 Crook's going to copy an Eternal Bond. Let's give him a little bit more space. Okay, now we go. Both of those big strategist ultimates were taken. Naga was 5% away from having the Karmic Revival. So really, it was just a case of perfect timing for the play to come in, and Polly is not letting this fight go outside of this corridor. He's able to go in for this one-shot battle. And even the Bast is going to be used from Tanuki. The connections, this is the perfect position for him. He's taking all of these all day, and Naga was the last alive. Maybe would have used a Karmic Revival, but Pokey spots and takes him down early, and 90 seconds on the clock for Rad.
We've talked about how dangerous it is and just how you can't take close-knit fights against a group. They're gonna win the fight because they set up walls and enclose you in the hallway, and you just take too much damage from the Thornlash walls. Well, we can add another one to that list, which could in this case seemingly take out Groot. It's the Black Panther. We just know that when they get those resets going, it is so hard. I mean, it's essentially unlimited damage. Trust me, it's kicked off the edge by Enzo. Fade's attempting to set up an opening, but they're already outnumbered with 2 members down. They're going to try and take this anyway, though. Getting Alex on the backline, trying to chase down into the high ground. Dark Force teleport. It's the 1v1. Cloak versus Cloak. As Enzo is taken down by Rajaro with the revenge for Trust Me. Pushing on in. As Ken sets up the Eternal Bond to get that extra stain. And level 1 Crypt will fall. Naga is once again down by Pokey.
He keeps going down, and it's just perfect moments for that Karmic Revival to come through. But he's able to come back just off of his passive anyway. So there's a little bit more fight in this one yet, but there's 20 seconds on the board. There's the final judgment. Melio has to find something for this, but everybody for BRR PATAPIM is just slipping away.
Crook just cloned Naga for the Karmic Revival to bring them back into the fight. And guess who now still has Karmic Revival? It's Naga as they make their way forward. Rad attempting to hold this. Portal's coming out from Pokino, as Enzo's going to try and delay with that Silent Seduction for the first hold. Naga has to stay up in this fight if they can. Then Rad can keep this going. Karmic Revival being used preemptively here, but immediately BRR PATAPIM are going to back away. They don't want to trigger it. Why would they? They wait for the inspiration with Vakamoto from Rajaro, taking advantage of BRR PATAPIM's hesitation. Revives coming out, pushes coming on in, and Rad are creating an opening. There's the retreat coming out from Enzo. They can't hold this alone. Pokey's dropping low. Trust Me's going down, but in the meantime, in the backline, it's Polly. Captain America to try and harass us as Ken has swapped over to the Jeff to try and make it in time, but with no one on the point, it is gonna be point number 1, grabbed by Rad.
Oh my word, you were right. Level 1 Crook was the one that got the copy onto Naga to have that Karmic Revival back. I thought he was just brought in from the Soul Perseverance. But good God, that took everything for Rad to just keep it moving, and they have to essentially finish out this map, only having 2 minutes here, getting another 90 seconds if they reach this next checkpoint. BRR PATAPIM not quite having ultimates just yet to go for a fast, pacey, high-tempo engagement, and RAD actually have a lot to spare here. Rajaro swapping over towards the thing, trying to go and use this big corridor whilst you're fighting uphill. You'll be rolling on through at the right times, and the Strangling Prison going to force BRR PATAPIM to keep resetting.
RAD attempting to do what they've done before, make the most of momentum. Rajaro on this thing could set them up with a clobbering time quite effectively to keep this push going. In the meantime, Tanuki is continuing to be encrypted, flying on past, but will finally get taken down by Rajaro and Melio as they will make their way towards this second point. Enzo dropping low. You can't lock down the thing for too long. You can't kick him at least, but you can Carbon Crush. Ken will fall as, trust me, making the most of the fact that the entranceway to this point is just very thin doorways and trying to push on in. But Melio taken out by Enzo, who's just coming out and contesting the dance and the butterfly for the backline to try and force them on. Soul Bonds comes out from Naga to keep the team topped up, and Fate with the healing of the Eternal Bond.
How much of a fight is still left in this for BRR PATAPIM? There's a minute still on the clock, and Rajaro just taking swings at whoever he can get onto. He's tried to spot the Eternal Bond, the Cloak and Dagger right at the end of it. Clobbering time, trying to follow him through. Strangler Prison actually going to connect onto the this time, but it was still a while before Ken actually went down in that engagement. Silent Seduction from Enzo going to come through, but it's just not enough. These guns working a little bit too hard for RAD, but there's still a delay that's coming in. Tanuki now, you could just watch Melio's perspective. He's trying to work out where on earth he is, but he's still able to connect onto him nicely. And BRR PATAPIM have to disengage here, disconnect completely from this engagement, because if they start getting reset like they did last time, there's not going to be too much time left for RAD.
They went aggressive there. They burned 3 ultimates just to get Ken, and you know what? It was worth it. Just remove that extra healing and that Terror Cape from the fight. They burned Clobbering Time, which did not land, Strangling Prison, which did, and then finished it off with Final Judgment to make sure that they can take the control. Freedom Charge to set this up with a minute and a half to go. BRR PATAPIM would rather engage now and then build up ultimates later on. They don't get anything, but they did create a little bit of harassment and hold the cart for just a moment.
I mean, they were happy to just go in with a Freedom Charge, force out the copy from level 1 Crook, and then disengage. Now they're going back in. They've taken out Naga. That's going to come back with the Soul Perseverance. It does have that Camera Revival, but it might not be needed. He's going to be able to go into this engagement. Tanuki's trying to get these combos connecting. The Idol Aura is going to keep him alive and keep him topped up, and now it's forced out Fate with the own Eternal Bond. There's the Strategist Ultimates dipping one at a time, and that's enough room for Pokey to go in for the Dance of the Butterflies. But if you don't catch out Naga here, everybody's going to be brought back, but nobody goes down. In fact, the Strangling Prison from Trust Me is going to be the thing that comes out on the other end. This payload only has to move, what, like 30 more meters, and the last few remaining players of BRR PATAPIM hiding behind the tree, trying not to get reset too often, but trying to contest as best as they're able to. The Final Judgment taken out from Tanuki. He's trying to find another sort of way back into this engagement, and Karmic Revival's able to bring people back from behind the corner.
Finally getting a Karmic Revival off without being tracked down by Pokey. They push on in. Crook goes for the copy. Eternal Bond to set this up. Tanuki just keeps getting locked down. Holly falls. Alex falls. This thing is grounding the Dashers, grounding the Flyers, and grounding the Swingers. And in comes the Strangling Prison. The Feast from the Abyss, but the damage output. But it's too staggered. BRR PATAPIM just keep coming back in. And RAD are running out of ultimates to use. They're about to have Clobbering Time, but nothing else is close. Can anyone else touch this point? Venom delays. The car moves forward. Tanuki is taken down. They get the triple, and RAD take the lead.
Oh man, BRR PATAPIM just again meters. One final fight, overtime pushes, and not finishing out the map, which is really difficult to do on Arco. Was really the difference. I have to say, this is the most worthwhile MVP that we've seen so far from the game, deciding that level 1 Crook's going to take it, because that copy for the Karmic Revival literally kept Team RAD in it on that first point.
Your power is mine. And it wasn't about just making sure the whole team came back.
It's Tanuki.
Sure that they had all the bodies on the board, 20 final hits, 44 KOs for Tanuki. But the fact is that OneCrook just made sure an investment in the future. Yes, it's so easy to say, Adam can walk back. I can swap over to an Eternal Bond to make sure we take this fight. But swapping to the Adam with that God of Mischief allowed them to make sure that they had Karmic Revival again later. It was a riskier play, but it paid off in bucket loads. Also, we talk about Eternal Bonds, we talk about these big defense abilities, but Regen Domain is kind of cracked.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's so necessary. Level 1 Crook being able to grab it was able to put out 50k's worth of healing just below Fate. But 30k damage done from Pokey, 40k done from Tanuki on Black Panther for the majority of that. Nobody even comes close. Then between them, as a duelist pair, had triple the damage of Melio, as he was obviously the sole duelist with the Adam Warlock composition. Just the output for BRR BRR PATAPIM was not enough. They don't really seem to have an answer for this Adam Warlock composition, to be honest. And even with Naga having a couple of moments where he probably should have brought out the Camera Revival but gets hunted down or uses it in a bad position, it's still not enough. Surely BRR BRR PATAPIM have to target this a little bit more in the draft because it is finding infinite value.
They hunted it down again. They literally were just running at Naga every time they could with both Pokey and Tanuki. Speaking of which, Tanuki must have had one of the most fun games of their life here. But just
anything about it. Rad now finding a little bit more success off that first ban, going to lock in the Loki.
Let's see what they go for here. BRR BRR thinking about that Luna. It did give them a lot of protection in the games where they have been able to grab a hand of it. And of course, it very much threatens someone like a Human Torch, like a Psylocke. It puts a lot of pressure on Rad to start targeting, but they are sticking to their guns. They are going to create the first ban, not on Loki, but on the Punisher, because they know the BRR BRR PATAPIM are currently threatening a lot of these Vanguards. So taking it away gives them more freedom to try and take BRR BRR in these more brawl-like fights that they seem to like to do.
Ooh, interesting. This is very, very different from what Rad have done before, because it typically has been if you ban out the Loki or any strategist first, that you would go protect it first. So maybe feeling a little bit nervous here, as Captain America is going to be this next ban out on the side of BRR BRR PATAPIM. Now this next one is going to be at the same time. Not going to see the mirror copies, but Wolverine, I think, locked in very, very quickly on the side of Rad.
They have the Emma. They're looking to potentially, they could try bringing back Groot, because trust me, was absolutely a king on Araco with that and can get some really good zoning potential. There are also some spots on this map where you can get isolated extremely easily and pulled off the map in some of the more niche cases like that Super Soldier Factory. And Rad looking to one-side it. They pick up the Wolverine for their protection. That's fair. That's reasonable.
Yeah, that's valid. I think that was earned, to be fair. So, I mean, it's a little bit more stress to deal with, less stress to deal with for sure on the side of BRR BRR PATAPIM. Protect it. We have the option here to protect the Emma Frost or the Magneto. I imagine the other one would get banned out towards the end here, unless there's some other tricks up Rad's sleeve.
Looks like they are looking at Magneto, so they can get at least a one-sider here. So now the question is, will Rad take away the Emma to make sure that they get the one-side and prevent the double mutant frontline? Looks like they're at least considering taking out that Captain America. As currently, Luna, Captain, and Psylocke are all available. The classic BRR BRR PATAPIM backline assassination comp. But Rad have decided that they would rather take more brawly fights and would rather have control over that Emma so that they can try and stun out. We know from Virtus Pro that Emma can trade out Magneto quite effectively and can lock down the Captain America if they're able to land that Carbon Crush. Rad decide that they'd rather fight in a melee style as opposed to just trying to brawl out and remove some of these backline divers.
Yeah, I think PATAPIM's won the draft here. If it was just off this alone, I think that final move was as checkmate, almost. Because you have to ban out the Emma Frost because you don't want to give Pokey that team-up combination where he can make decoys of himself and do a little bit more damage. It means that he's going to be a little bit more dangerous and more lethal with those approaches. But you've given Polly Captain America in a game mode where he's able to brawl and dive and just be as irritating as ever. The Polly Pokey duo is definitely real. But saying that, Tetra, it was semi-available for them in the last game over on Araco, and it didn't work. So really, it has to be down to these fine margins. BRR PATAPIM lost the first point over on Krakoa earlier. Now they want to have a strong start because they could be in free fall and the panic can start setting in if they don't get this first point of Hell's Heaven on lock.
Speaking of pressure, we're seeing BRR PATAPIM going for a little bit less of a min-max here. They start off on just Rocket, Ford of Rocket's packed lunch for that 25 extra armor, whereas RAD, they did take the time to make sure that at least 4 of their players got that 50 armor, that extra bonus health from the Penny team-up. So now they're going to be making their way in with at least a little bit extra protection in comparison to BRR.
And Tanuki is on the Black Panther now. He's seen a lot of Americans use it and is like, it's my time. If I have to rely on my comfort, I'm going to go for it. And we've seen how potent it can be in the right hands across the Atlantic. Rajaro trying to find connections onto him, but he's able to be a little bit more slippery. Regardless, it is Melio does find that first pick over on towards Pokey, and almost halfway to building up that Rage of Ultron. It's only Trust Me that's actually beating him out with not only just the pure damage output, but trying to get that silent seduction online.
Tanuki looking for another turnaround. Naga creeping forward, needs a bit of healing. See if they can find someone to maybe take off the edge. This is the point of the map where you can try and start dragging people. Going with the booster, take Polly into the abyss. It might be a 1-for-1, but it's certainly a mental win.
Well, it's more the fact that you've got people on the point fighting as well, and now this is still like an over-dedication. Pokey's just in their backline. Spawns were flipped there for a second, and Trust Me, he's actually managed to get a hold of him. Sort of really set up Naga to do the majority of the damage on the back end, but he's not going to be able to get the pick, and actually, in fact, RAD have lost the point, so Naga's found himself in a little bit of no man's land, wants to try to dive out and get out of the way, but he doesn't quite realize that behind him, somebody else was looming. Rajaro swapping over towards the thing, a really big pivot that opened up the RAD for a little bit more freedom in these more scrappy engagements. Tanuki must have a better plan this time.
Rajaro, the thing has been so effective on Araco, while Tanuki has been able to find the freedom just due to the cooldowns that being in favor of BRR PATAPIM. The thing, Yancy Street Charge, does ground dashes, stops that Black Panther from moving on through. You can see they can't step into that cracked ground area, so they have to wait for it to expire. There's also the potential knockdown of that Clobberantine. Here comes the Rage of Ultron into the Meteor M2, absorbing, sniping level 1 Crook right off the back here. Silence Seduction coming in from above for Trust Me as they are committing to this engage. Melio drop low, but already healed back up with that imperative patch. And last stand to force Pokey off the point.
Just as he had the Dance of the Butterflies, but this is RAD throwing in 3 ultimates in this engagement. They still haven't quite taken the point as it's still ticking up in favor of BRR PATAPIM. Invisible Boundary, Tanuki's just going to keep connecting on through, but has decided that he's going to try and reset, build up some of those cooldowns again and go for another engagement in the future. Polly with a Freedom Charge is going to have just basically the heck kicked out of him. The Bast is going to come in and Polly's going to actually find a follow-up over onto Fade. It is him taken out though. It's just the thing from Rajaro in these sort of positions, able to maintain and stem the flow from some of the damage coming in from BRR PATAPIM, but otherwise there's just too much coming at him that he has to disengage. 80% on the board.
BRR PATAPIM in control. RAD, they're taking fights okay for a while, but they're just getting overwhelmed by attrition and haven't been able to step up onto the point. They're going to portal in for one last chance at the defense to try and hold this, but that's going to be without the thing, meaning that Tanuki is about to start cruising on through here to start getting reset after reset, looking above so they can go for the setup. First reset, I think they went through the portal, coming back out, does the butterfly, coming in from Pokey, but it's gonna be BRR PATAPIM wiping out the re-engage attempt, while RAD are actually going to be able to get the flip. They are extremely outnumbered. They want Crook gets a double.
9% has been hit, swapped over towards RAD now. Tanuki is taking a bludgeoning, right, with the amount of damage that's focused, but he's still able to move himself around to catch on to Melio. Contest from Rajaro. I see the Doctor Strange is being picked up. Have you got the portal? It doesn't look, I think they're just going to have to walk it. No, they weren't prepared for it at all. BRR PATAPIM able to take that first point, only losing a little bit of percentage in the meanwhile.
Portal burn to get onto that point for that initial engage and just immediately appearing into a Dance of the Butterfly. BRR PATAPIM were just more than prepared for a defense, and right now RAD, in comparison, where BRR have to take more staggered fights on Araco, there's counter strategy for that Black Panther. I was apparently way wrong, even with the open space. Tanuki's just having a lovely time knowing exactly where to position to get the lineups. They're just sweeping through over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, you're sort of right that this move over towards the thing and being able to just earthbound Tanuki to stop those resets. I think Tanuki's having a bit more of an approach of like, almost like a target. He's providing so much space for Pokey to be doing the heavy lifting. He's like, hee, chase me, and he's taking, he's having the ever-living daylights just beating out of him, but it's providing so much success from his duelist duo. And now Melio's going to try and have a copy himself, moving over towards that Psylocke away from the Ultron.
Giving himself a little bit of backline burst potential. Getting picked off out the sky, just not finding, like you say, not finding enough healing output. So they're going to trade that healing output that doesn't seem to be making a huge difference for even more damage. Melio's already dropped extremely low, though, as they managed to Pokey. Both of them drop low. Here comes Black Panther. Tanuki, reset after reset, but not enough for a finishing blow yet. But Melio will still be taken down to the flanks, and Polly is on the run after getting locked down by Naga.
Ooh, Silent Seduction used pretty early on, and when you've already lost a player, you're losing your backline as the Meteor M. You're just stood in a corridor that's 90 degrees, so it's perfectly set up for Enzo to just put the exclamation mark on top of it. The point taken first yet again for BRR BRR PATAPIM. They get the resets in, and Tanuki's good to go with another Bast.
All right, they're mixing it up. They've decided to adjust. Rajiro's moving over to the EMEA. Try and lock down this Black Panther with a Carbon Crush. Trust me, moving on to the Hulk. If we can't stop him from moving, we'll at least shield ourselves and try and delay that way. But Melio is picked up again on the flank. Tanuki, every time someone's out of position, every time someone is even slightly alone, they're able to get a quick pickup, meaning that RAD have to wait once again for a regroup.
See exactly whether this is going to connect. Shout out to Insomnia that are still giving teams nightmares with this play beforehand. Unfortunately, I had to say goodbye to them yesterday, but seeing if there's a little bit of a imitation that's going to come in. But right now, actually, this is just a lot of, it feels a little bit of time wasted, frankly, from RAD as they're trying to group up things together. Is the connection good enough? Oh, the leap just misses. The backline almost offering themselves up as bait, and a counterattack is going to provide a bit of space for Melio to go for the Dancing Butterflies, but he just misses. He cancels it all. BRR BRR PATAPIM just shift to the side, and they manage to dodge such a pivotal ultimate.
Turtle Pod for the extra protection. Last stand to try and turn this round. Naga able to help take out Alex, but Tanuki has Blast Descent with the Freedom Charge for the extra health, but they're actually dropping a little bit lower here. Here comes the Blast Descent straight through the entire team, and it wipes Trust Me off the board as they were down into that battle form. Fate falls. Tanuki is finally taken down by Melio, but it's 93, 94, 95, and it's just Naga. I have Agamotto to try and delay, but that is oh, hello, Wolverine. Goodbye, Wolverine.
He just dove in off screen. The portal play, yeah, it has to come in now. But are they able to? They're not actually able to get on top of it. Oh, just in the nick of time, people were able to touch the objective, but just blocking it off was Enzo's Magneto. The Meteor M not quite getting the final blow, but doing the majority of the damage. And Tanuki feeling and looking good. He's going to be happy. He's going to be pleased. This was a speed run on Hell's Heaven. Thankfully, as a neutral Tetra, we're going to a Mat 5.
We get more of this, no complaints. It is going to be BRR BRR PATAPIM evening up the score, and that was solid, just cleaning up over and over again. It's kind of what we've been seeing. BRR BRR PATAPIM have been wiping RAD repeatedly. They have had so many team wipes here that I am out of fingers and toes to count them. But the fact is, RAD in some of these more macro bases have been able to time some of their pushes very effectively, and now with RAD being able to pick a map, it could lean back in their favor. We are looking at two teams who are so incredibly close. A total of 10 final hits, which was dwarfed by at least 2 of the players on BRR BRR PATAPIM.
And Ken not actually going down once. I'm going to do my best like Twitch chat impression for this one, which is, that's what happens when you ban out Adam Warlock. And honestly, I kind of agree. Like, it did look a night and day difference when you take out that character. And BRR BRR PATAPIM, like I said, I felt that they really set themselves up perfectly for the draft. When you have the choice of getting Emma Frost on your team at the end or Polly's Captain America, yeah, choose which way you want to lose, essentially. And that was convincing. That has got to be a lot of confidence being built up from BRR BRR PATAPIM. The downside, however, is that you can't go back to this game mode. Right now, Team RAD have the choice of the final map, and they can go for a convergence or a convoy, the game modes that they've won in this series in its entirety.
I've seen enough. It's time to rework, Jeff. They need to, like you say, go to Convoy or Convergence, and we look at the maps that are available. We have Central Park and Midtown, both of the Empire of Eternal Night maps. We have the Symbiotic Surface. A lot of these maps are very long and very much benefit static defenses. Setting up stuff like the Groot is going to be very effective. Rocket could creep back in for some quick revives, and all of them will benefit very heavily from an Adam Warlock, which is why I won't be surprised if we see that banned out again.
It is an absolute heat wave in here in the EMEA across all different areas, and I think the fact that this is going to a map 5 is pretty much hitting. They've got a couple of VODs at least of what BRR BRR PATAPIM have been on. Like to Midtown, yeah, don't take BRR BRR PATAPIM there because of how good they looked against Virtus.pro yesterday. But now, Captain America is going to be the first ban for RAD instead of going for like a low-key protect.
That is interesting. And BRR BRR, you can see they immediately slow down. Like, hang on, wait, that's different. And they are still going to ban away the Loki, but you can see they had to stop and talk for a second as their order is going to be ever so slightly displaced. Where do they prioritize their picks now? Because they could secure that Loki, and it looks like they may consider doing so.
I mean, it would make sense. The stats, I suppose, of a non-mirrored Loki, the win rate has taken a hit today, to say the very least, for the times that they've been able to get it. And Punisher's going to be taken out, which makes sense. It's the thing that is consistent across RAD's draft phase. And Captain America is going to be taken out on the other side, and Emma Frost is going to be non-mirrored to maintain that front line for RAD a little bit more.
Captain America banned out mirrored on both sides, with BRR BRR banning it quite a bit later. You already mentioned one-sided Emma Frost, which means BRR BRR have the opportunity to now create a one-sided Magneto or a one-sided Cloak and Dagger if they choose to do this. Actually, no, they can't create one-sided Cloak and Dagger because RAD would have the opportunity to protect it if they wanted to. So instead, they're going to secure themselves a Magneto, knowing that there is a chance that they might just get a little bit focused down when it comes to that Cloak and Dagger, because RAD have the opportunity to secure it for themselves either way.
Yeah, they want to maintain barriers as well. They don't want to fall to the trap that RAD have been falling into a little bit, especially on that first map of Krakoa. But Psylocke making sure that Pokey can't go for this combination. I thought that's why the Emma Frost ban came in, to just stop that team up from happening. But they're going to protect Venom. I feel like this is RAD showing their hand a little bit, and I mean, the success that they've had from the Venom today on these pillared maps has been insurmountable, definitely noticeable.
The Mantis being hovered here, while the Adam Warlock is so tempting. Venom plus Inspire is what really assisted both of these teams on that first setup of Hall of Jalia, and as such, BRR BRR PATAPIM take the bait. They're going to remove the Mantis, and Adam is allowed through, but with a lot of those team-ups getting removed, BRR BRR PATAPIM, seeing these Vanguard adjustments, they now have the opportunity, if they want to, for a one-sided Adam Warlock of their own, and the Mord may be coming in for the defense due to the fact that Venom is going to be diving in, and getting that Gamma Monstro would at least melt through a lot of that health quite quickly.
This is where it starts to matter. Nerves for both of these teams are going to really start to set in. You've got some experienced names from hero shooters of days yonder who have been able to attend some of the bigger events in other esports, but this feels like a whole different kettle of fish for them. And one of the oldest maps, the one that a year ago we were all trying out for the first time when we get our hands on the beta and stuff, really getting a sniff of what Marvel Rivals, and certainly what Marvel Rivals esports can be like. A year later, today, we really get to see what the best teams from this region are able to do. Looks like it's going to be RAD attacking first, BRR BRR PATAPIM getting Enzo over on the Hulk with a Magneto combo for Polly.
They've set themselves up very nicely. They've got themselves that Namor for some defense, the Hulk for the power-up. They have a Star-Lord to try and duel out any flyers, which Naka is going to go into with that Human Torch. And immediately they're able to catch the flank and force Tanuki to back up. They have that extra shielding for Tanuki when they go over the Blaster Barrage with the Iron Bulwark, as Tanuki is forced to back all the way up. Dropped incredibly low as in comes that Gamma Monstro, just in case RAD continue this aggression.
Yeah, trust me, I should have a lot of freedom here as well, that he's not just going to be carbon crushed by the EMEA Frost on the other side because Rad banned it out. Rajaro's going to be playing it on the other side, and it's actually the strategists that fight first, and level 1 Crook finds that first elimination to get things moving. And much like before, Tetra, Rad are putting this up with momentum that's going to force BRR BRR PATAPIM to surrender a lot of space.
And this is where Rad seem to be gaining advantages with getting early pickups and just never giving up on the pace. In comes Trust Me from behind. Frenzied Arrival immediately coming in, forcing Polly to portal so they can reinforce their team. Pushed backwards there with the Crystal King. They're stuck on the car. They can't barely make it through the portal, but they will make it in. And Pokey is getting a lot of damage onto the divers. Enzo started on the thing for at least a moment, but will swap back onto the Hulk because they need to make sure that Pokey can keep this damage output up. Here comes the Blaster Barrage for Tanuki as they're building up towards that Galactic Legend, and this hallway is turning into a blender right now as Danta the Butterfly comes out from Melio, and we're seeing BRR BRR PATAPIM getting whittled down to nothing as Rad claim point number 1.
Done in 90 seconds too. Melio just getting a Dance the Butterflies online, uses it instantly. BRR BRR PATAPIM was still really trying to bring something up and forward. Tanuki switching away from the Star-Lord just as he got that Galactic Legend. Wants to go for that Wolverine, that team up with Enzo, trying to see if he can take Naga out of the sky, and there's no Punisher available to them. So trying to be this like anti-air machinery isn't going to have that option. The Supernova, he's knocked straight out of the sky from the Hulk, and it's going to just reset things for the time being. He's still able to have that ultimate ongoing with that damage output. But the fate of both worlds is going to keep BRR BRR PATAPIM alive and kicking.
You just lost so much time on that, though. Like you say, it's going to keep them going. Level Crook coming in with the fate of both worlds. Torna Proteus finds Melio on the dash for the pickup. And that will prevent a lot of damage coming out from Rad. The Wolverine is getting some great value. Finding Venom indoors is a place where you like to be. The silent seduction is coming on out, but while BRR BRR PATAPIM are taking the jewels, they're getting picked off on the flanks. As BRR BRR PATAPIM lose 2 members, Rad keep on pushing the silent seduction, keeping them zoned.
Even when these fights have been going on for BRR BRR PATAPIM, the payload has been moving nearly uncontested. You see just how spread BRR BRR PATAPIM are in these engagements, and the last stand is going to be used. He's not really found the target yet. He didn't really look completely behind the way he sees 2 other players. But now the catch is going onto the Venom, pulling him right out of position, but he's got enough sustain to keep Trust Me alive for the time being. He hasn't gone down as of yet. He's able to escape, but the other Vanguard of Rajaro just finds the fist of Enzo's Hulk. Worldbreaker's going to try and go in and contest, but Rad have hit the point. They have 5 minutes to finish the map.
They are cruising. They're so good when it comes to momentum. They take yet more pickups. They are pushing on, and anyone who's running back to spawn so they can regroup is fair game. As Melio is moving on in to see if they can catch someone. Enzo tries to delay by separating out the EMEA Frost, but the rest of the team just could not keep up. Down to the Butterfly in front of the spawn door. Feast from the Abyss looking for the one-shot, but the regeneration domain shuts it down, and Tanuki gets the turnaround.
They're going to be happy with just over-dedicating ultimates almost. Tanuki's going to try and mirror over onto the Human Torch, really just trying to find the hero that he can find that success on. Black Panther is available, but maybe not the position to be thrown out as of yet. Especially when you got Pokey, that team up with the Hulk, the Gamma Overload, able to just get a little bit more damage out from the squids. You really need to be careful now because you have got Polly and Hulk, like the Venom and Hulk even, with no barriers. It's going to be easy for Melio to get these ultimates on board, and level 1 Crook wants to not to just be a case of charging up the ultimates for the duelists. They're going for a little bit more lethal pressure, and right now the Horn of Proteus catching on through. It connects onto Melio, and BRR BRR PATAPIM are making this an absolute brawl, but they're throwing every ultimate they have available at it.
Silent Seduction is going to come out, even though they're a person down. Rad is still going to try and duel this as Naga is taken out the sky once again with the Supernova. Enzo giving everything in their power, but with Alex falling. Tanuki with
the
Supernova Road is going to try and push this down. Banner falls. Enzo is down. Faye trying to keep the team up with this Eternal Bond pushing on it. That's the Dark Force teleport to get out of dangerous. Trust Me is outside the spawn door once again, causing problems, delaying, buying time as the cart keeps moving forward. BRR, they buy time, but they are forced back again.
They have to really dig deep now with whatever that you have, but it might be a little bit too much to ask for. You've got a Feast of the Abyss ready for Trust Me in a second, and a Dance of the Butterflies for Melio ready. The payload is moving uncontested. You have to use the Fate of Both Worlds to just jump on the point to stop things from churning on for RAD, which means that you're an open target. That is a hell of a Feast of the Abyss though from Paulie. He's able to connect onto free. It looked like it was a last-ditch attempt to keep things afloat, but it turned the tides now for BRR BRR PATAPIM to keep on holding. It's still 2.5 minutes though, Tetra. They have a long time to hold on.
BRR BRR PATAPIM realizing that they are right outside their spawn doors. They need people who can arrive on the point fast. So Polly on the Venom, Enzo on the Hulk. They've got the Human Torch for a little bit of hold and sticking with that Namor to try and help deal with Naga and Trust Me and Melio as they dive on in. They're hyper committed, just trying to delay this. Naga getting focused down quite aggressively here, very nearly getting finished up, and level 1 Crook will be the first to fall. As with 2 minutes to go, RAD have plenty of time, but they can't afford to keep getting staggered like this as Tanuki grabs another, taking out Trust Me.
Enzo was talking about this in the interview yesterday when he was on the Hulk beforehand, of just how much of a beating that he took, and it just seemed that no matter what he did, he was getting focused down. And it's the same story here. He has to use the World Breaker to just stay alive, doesn't want to be burnt down, and there's too much CC on the side of RAD, and now just too much damage with the Supernova. Regeneration Domain has to be used, and the copy comes in instantly from Ken to get that Fate of Both Worlds. It's not enough, however. Pokey is going to go down just as he has the Horn of Proteus. It's enough of a respite to grant space, but it's not going to be available. Ken's ultimate duration is just about to expire, and that's where RAD might push a little bit more. The Psionic Seduction finding one. That Feast of the Abyss from Trust Me, seeing if it can find a little bit more, but can't.
Tanuki has to pull the trigger, but they're not dropping a signal onto their opponents because they have to use it to try and get out of this room that they've been trapped in. Naga is just keeping them on lockdown. Feast of the Abyss from Polly to try and turn this round by chasing down the strategist, trying to weigh down that Fate of Both Worlds, doing a huge amount of damage onto Rajaro, who locks them in with the Carbon Crash. Pokey taking Naga out of the sky means that they've lost a huge amount of firepower. 48 seconds left for RAD to try and turn this round, and BRR BRR PATAPIM are cleaning out the point. RAD, what do they have left? They can potentially try and swap over to a Strange. They've brought in the Rocket Raccoon, but no, they'll swap back over to the Cloak and Dagger for the reinforce. Trust Me on the Strange. It's a portal between now and the triple cap for RAD. If they can win this one fight, Naga brings out the Wolverine to pull people off the point. The portal is being held. They're moving it on foot because they have a couple extra seconds here.
5 minutes down to 20 seconds on this final checkpoint. All to play for Horn of Proteus, right into the center of RAD, but everybody alive, everything required to keep people going. Very short while away from having that Eternal Bond for Fate. It's on the precipice of being available, and it's going to come out just in time. The World Breaker, however, is going to be used, and the picks are going the way of BRR BRR PATAPIM. Even through that support ultimate, it's not enough to keep people afloat, and one of those players that you lost is Crook. He doesn't quite have it. Last stand is going to be from Naga to just push back and give some space. The finishes are not coming through. The eliminations are holding on. BRR BRR PATAPIM have burned all of the time in the world, and they're looking to burn a little bit brighter with the Supernova from Tanuki thrown onto the point. It's pretty much all blue in the feed on the right-hand side, and they're holding on to a good, resolute position, but is it going to be enough?
I think RAD may have just made a misplay. I like that they tried bringing out the Strange because the damage output when fighting on a single point is good, but the reinforcements could have made such a difference there. If they'd stuck to their guns and stuck with what they were already playing, stuck with that Venom for the extra sustain, whoever went down first could have moved on to the Strange to try and portal back in. Moving in on foot when they still had that portal off cooldown may have been a misplay that might have secured BRR BRR PATAPIM that ticket towards the mid-season finals.
Again, a reminder of the draft and how it's looked. BRR BRR PATAPIM having to go for something that's a little bit different, but Venom mirroring, looking good in either case. Pokey now leading on the damage for his team, 9 final blows. Comparing that to Naga that's on this non-mirrored Psylocke,
before you attack.
It's just a little bit more. You have to look at the support, and Melio is actually going to go over towards playing that Ultron. And for that triple strategist yet again, not with the Adam Warlock, I don't believe. Even though it's still available.
As we mentioned, like you say, the Adam Warlock is available, but it was the Mantis that was banned out, so they would only be getting reses onto the Star-Lord if they were to decide to do this. RAD setting themselves up on the defense. BRR PATAPIM, they're sticking with the hyper aggression. Double dive with the Hulk and this Venom. Hulk going to be diving between, swapping between diving the backline and then moving back into their team for that indestructible guard. They find the flank, they find Naga, and they're waiting for them to pull the triggers. They can try and dive onto them. Polly with the distraction, pushing on forward, immediately getting locked down, but is able to disengage. Focused, able to survive. Not going to be finished off this time.
Tanuki taking no real focus right now. It is more pot shots before Polly comes in, and alongside Enzo, it's perfectly executing on the dive, but it's great CC in order for RAD to keep themselves alive only for a short moment now before level 1 Crook goes down. The Vanguards are finding all of the strategists, and now it's just Trust Me that's fighting over onto this objective. Fate's going to go down too. The first point might be a fairly quick one. RAD are going to have the chance to re-engage onto this. I don't think a Doctor Strange portal is going to be required as of yet, but both teams trying to match each other with how fast they're taking that first point.
Going to be seeing BRR PATAPIM creeping on in. RAD waiting for the regroup. There's a couple members here. They are probably going to try and defend this on gate number 1. Not going to give it up for free. Melio on the Punisher to try and burn through these large hitboxes on the Venom and the Hulk. Doing a lot of damage right away, but Melio is going to be the one to fall. Tanuki comes in from over the top, flaming media, and BRR PATAPIM are cleaning up right now. Eternal Bomb comes in to buy the extra time, and Melio swapping over to the Strange so they can go for the reinforce.
Pokey!
And Pokey is dominating.
A little bit of an emo that comes out there. Doctor Strange, it's going to be thrown in a portal. You can contest it. 0.06 meters, pretty much on the line. An extra hair on the goat's nose and you're on to the next part of the map. But no, there's going to be this fight happening for RADs. The fate of both worlds from Crook, allowing people to really engage, at least burn the time. But burning brighter yet again is going to be Tanuki up in high ground. The Supernova has to give up a lot of space, though. He gets taken out from Melio. That dives into him with the Doctor Strange.
The Lokis are swapping around, trying to make sure that they stay safe. Naga getting the map heal in this fight. Enzo is giving everything they can on this point. It's gone from 6 centimeters down to just under a meter. Tanuki returning to the fight. Regeneration domain to hold this. The bodies on the board are getting cleaned up. The reinforcement distance playing in favor of BRR PATAPIM as they are able to take the first point.
You take that, I still think, because RAD, you forced out a lot more time. You've got some of the bigger ultimates out. You have to sort of be careful. Polly is very good in playing in these positions. You've got Enzo that sort of makes the more brash approach, right? Just as the Hulk, he's not afraid to take that damage and dive back out. But Polly being able to just jump up onto the high grounds, dive down, and with Tanuki, he's able to go in for it too. It means that you're able to just body block some of the approaches here. Enzo managing to cut off behind where these defenders are for RAD, and they're forced into an engagement. They're maybe potentially forced out to use the fate of both worlds. Sorry, even the Eternal Bond that's going to come through, and the dance of the butterfly from Naga, seeing if it can catch something in the backline, and it catches onto Pokey.
Pokey was in the air in that aquatic blessing, but got outlasted, picked off. Crook falls to Tanuki, who's playing so aggressively. Feast from the Abyss trying to chase them down. They're too mobile. They were able to get away as Melio arrives, gets out the shotgun and deals with the symbiote. They're turning this round. BRR PATAPIM trying to hold onto the card as the counter feed from the Abyss is going to come out, locked down onto Trust Me, but they're already healed back up. Fate of both worlds to keep Tanuki up so they can try and break the siege.
I mean, that's a hell of a fight. It was also a great play for Ken to be able to go for the copy and teleport out just as the Feast of the Abyss comes in. Silent Seduction going indoors, and Tanuki tries to follow. Unfortunately, gets a little bit more than he bargained for. You also lose out on one of your Vanguards. 2.5 minutes. Rather able to hold on to this spot, and they still have the final judgment in hand for Melio. They're happy to just sit back on it. Fate of both worlds. BRR PATAPIM need to get something going, but if they try and make this fight continue, if they try to overextend here, it feels that more time is just going to be burnt away from them.
The difference between Naga and Fate there. Naga's so locked in and Fate is just chilling. They believe that this is going well as Melio's going to drop that final judgment, burning onto Tanuki, who is up above. They're looking for anyone who is vulnerable, but they do not find the pickups. So it's all about positioning. In comes that Venom as they dive on forward. Adjudication out of radioactive lockdown's going to shut them down as the Supernova from Tanuki is trying to melt through reinforcements. RAD are trying to hold this with just 1 minute 43 seconds left. BRR PATAPIM can't seem to find the distance. Fate of both world is coming in from level 1. Crook Ken keeping their team topped up as well. Faces the Abyss onto Polly, but they're on through. Neither team is going down. Dancing the butterflies to try and push this in as Naga gets a double.
And Paulie is just somehow staying alive up until the very end. And now there's just under 90 seconds for BRR PATAPIM. They forced out a lot from this defense, that's the positive, but you have got a silent seduction and another final judgment for Melio about to be ready. I think Melio's key for this one for Rad. If you want to stop things here and now, it's going to be that to work with. Naga gets CC'd, but he's not under any immediate threat. He's going to be chased down though by 2 players, so has to maybe surrender up this high ground as the Feast of the Abyss looking for an opportunity for Polly. He doesn't have to worry about the strategist ultimates for the time being, and he's able to grab onto Melio just as he was about to get that final judgment.
Rad getting cleaned out here. BRR PATAPIM. That car might be starting to move. They are cleaning them off the board here. And the goats start walking, headed towards that second point to open up the gates and head towards Yggdrasil, the Tree of Life, which can instill a grand finals position in whoever is able to touch it. So the legends say, as BRR PATAPIM are looking on the flanks, making sure that anyone who comes to the reinforce is going to get shut down. Pokey playing safe. They can't afford to be the ones to be taken out early, as they are one of the big damage outputs.
Oh, Pokey and Tanuki have found 2. Silent Seduction is going to mean that this fight goes into overtime for the time being, but it's not going to pull anybody off of the point. It's now into OT. It's now down to these fine margins that BRR PATAPIM have struggled with over on these payload maps, but we're still seeing the event feed starting to light up with BRR PATAPIM names. Certainly Pokey's able to find himself a couple. It's right at the precipice, but Rad have bought themselves more time. What was it? BRR PATAPIM had 5 minutes to defend on the 3rd area of Yggdrasil's path. It's 90 seconds again for BRR PATAPIM to push it all the way.
They're making their way in. This is it. It comes down to distance now. 100 meters, 18 centimeters. That's it. That is the distance here as BRR PATAPIM are looking for openings. They have Horde of Proteus, Rad, Feast from the Abyss, Dance of the Butterfly, and now Fate of Both Worlds is going to be dropped immediately. Dance of the Butterfly coming on out with 1 minute to go. Every pickup that Rad can get will be huge, and they find Tanuki with the zone up. Melio looking for Polly, forcing them to disengage.
Now it's really a case of waiting it out, and Rad's overextended, perhaps they do. Naga goes down to Enzo. He was just holding his own, but you lose out on Pokey that had the Horn of Proteus. It's going to be about 10 to 15 seconds before he's back in this engagement, and there's the Feast of the Abyss that comes through. Enzo, though, the Hulk is winning out. He's going to be back in Bruce Banner form, but he might be able to sort of go for a good duel here against Crook if he can get the shots in. Halfway to building it back up, and the other Vanguards actually found the trade over on the other side, so now it's going to be Enzo out of it for the time being. 20 seconds left. This is going to be an overtime push yet again for BRR PATAPIM, and it has to be everything that they have here. The Feast of the Abyss not going to catch on to anything, and now the Supernova alongside the God of Mischief for Ken going to bring this down to exact moments, Tetcher.
They're going in. They have to burn everything. It's like you say, overtime is going to be picked. But Melio with Final Judgment at the ready. They take out Tanuki. Final Judgment. Polly is melting the symbiotic resilience. Fate of Both Worlds to try and keep BRR PATAPIM's dreams alive. As Rad
that's big.
Forcing their way forward. The shielding comes out. Polly takes out Melio as they make their way to the backline. Level 1 Crook with the Fate of Both Worlds is going to buy that extra time. Enzo is down into Banner and take it out again. Alex falls. Tanuki is swapping over to the Doctor Strange. They have to reinforce. Polly has to delay this for as long as possible. Naga cleans out Pokey. It's about to reinforce. Pulls a lot to the point. It comes down to this as they're trying to delay it. Tanuki's getting focused down. The shield is giving every second they can. They're body blocking any reinforcements, but Enzo's able to make it through with the radioactive lockdown to open it up. But they're locked off the point. The banner transformation. It's GG. And we will see Rad get the final point, and they will be our first representative for Marvel Rivals Ignite at the mid-season finals.
They had so much to prove, even with that first ever series win to knock Virtus Pro off that unbeatable stop. It really was a case of getting the revenge in the end for Trust Me and the rest of Team Rad. It really now is just a 3 potential 4-horse race here. And these payload maps looking so good for RAD, but it comes down to mere moments. That second point hold in the end was just enough time that was bought up by Team RAD. And even with moments like 40k damage done from Tanuki, 17 final blows, just the backline, the strats, I think the draft here was excellent for RAD. And even then you saw Enzo have some unbelievable moments as the World Breaker Hulk to just survive in those fights a little bit longer, take some of that attention away. But just 90 seconds on that final point for BRR BRR PATAPIM to keep on pushing wasn't enough in the end.
They tried to portal in. They gave everything they can for that final point, but RAD with bodies, using the Venom and the Emma Frost to stand in front of the objective and hold them off the point. Enzo snuck past with that jump, but Bruce Banner in that transformation in between them and the Hulk form does not count as a body for the point. Once they are back in Banner, they count as a body. When they're in Hulk, they count as a body. The transformation does not. Overtime ticks down. Everyone else is body blocked, and it's GG. And Team RAD, in an intense matchup, either of these teams could have taken this. This was one of the closest matchups we have seen in Ignite, period. But RAD taking it, and deservedly so.
Gotta say for Melio as well, he had some great moments over on the Punisher, but that stall, that portal that came in from Doctor Strange with 0.06 meters on that first point, it bought an extra 2 minutes, maybe even 3. So now, I mean, I'm really curious on how that one's realistically going to go. And for me, Virtus.pro, every time that they have lost, they have come back and bounced back dominantly. So Zero Tenacity have to really show that there's some fight in this one. Otherwise, it could be a very quick final game for us here.
It feels like they have the Zenkai buff, which I think I might have just said that word wrong, but I'm going to go for it anyway, where once you get knocked down, they always come back a little bit stronger, building themselves up. We have our interview in. They finished celebrating, at least for now. We have Fate from RAD coming in for the interview, and my mate, congratulations, first grand finalist for EMEA and our first representative for the mid-season finals. How you doing?
I feel fucking great. I mean, we worked very, very hard for this win. I'm glad we got it. It would have been really, really tough to go to the bracket and play BT. Well, probably.
I mean, yeah, no team wants to be able to do it. I think you've set yourselves up nicely, but one thing I wanted to talk about were the drafts, because I really do feel that there was a lot of interesting movements from both you and PATAPIM going for like the non-mirrored Wolverine that actually wasn't able to work on those domination maps. Like, let's start with there. The 2 maps that you dropped, both in domination, what went wrong?
I feel like first map we had a pretty major draft difference. We like went into the map thinking, okay, let's ban Punisher, let's ban Wolf, and we kind of last second swapped to the Cat ban, and I think it really fucked us because their Punisher map 1 just got so much value. The other map we lost, I don't remember what it was. That was House Heaven, right? I think there's also a similar issue. We allowed them Cap Psy, which they're very, very strong on. Like, they're probably the best Cap Psy team in the world. So it's House Heaven was pretty one-sided.
We also saw BRR BRR PATAPIM bring out something that they have brought in a couple times before, and that is that Black Panther. And you guys did go for quite a few iterations of how to deal with that. You brought out the Thing at one point. You were relying very heavily on those regeneration domain labs, but it nearly was able to topple you over. Where do you feel its strength lies, and what did you adjust in the end to be able to finally deal with it?
Black Panther is so scary, especially if Tanuki's on it. But I think the Rajar, actually, it was Trust Me's cool. Trust Me made a cool to go to thing. And to be fair, not that the team actually didn't believe it at first, but as soon as we swapped a thing, it felt a lot better. The Earthbound, I think it does so much against the Black Panther. So that was a very, very good call.
There was a very, very clutch moment. You focused a lot on Loki. I think we saw a fantastic copy of, I think from Crook onto, it might have been you, or it might have been Naga that was playing playing the Adam Warlock on Arako, that he copies over the Camera Revival to get the Resurrect back. Like, were there any particular moments that caught you by surprise from your team in this best of 5? Like any crazy plays that we just missed in the action that you guys knew about because you obviously were able to execute on them? Because so much was going on in those fights sometimes.
Honestly, Arako in particular was full of miracles. I think the only reason why we even got first point is because Rojaro basically just killed the whole team by himself. And I think the Crook res was also insanely big. Like, I think without those two hero plays, we probably would have just lost then and there. Those are like the main standouts.
You yourself got some insane Eternal Bonds. You just got insane ultimates the entire time. Remind us, who does the shot calling for the team when it comes to getting these ultimates off in time?
Most of the shot calling is trust me, but I think a lot of our team are very vocal. Like, I think Rojaro, on officials, he's always so vocal. Like, his comms are really good. And our backline are obviously always talking. DPS too. Everyone plays their part.
I think one of the things about you guys that have been really entertaining to watch is, like, as a core, you have stayed pretty much the same. Like, you've played under different banners, you've had some good results when you played in the Invitational, for example. And certainly, like, you and Crook have played together as a strategist backline for quite some time now. We've spoken a lot about, like, the first international event. First pro you'd expect at the top. BRR BRR PATAPIM being close behind. Zero to Nasty trying to make a name for themselves. Does it feel like almost vindicating that you guys were the first to qualify, that it wasn't these other teams that almost taken over focus, it was you guys that have been grinding for so long that just almost seems to keep missing out on that discussion? Now you have made history, right? You're the first team to ever qualify for EMEA for an international event, not those other bozos, right?
Yeah, I mean, it feels amazing. I think Virtus.pro and BRR BRR PATAPIM are both amazing teams. They're so strong. I think literally, like, if all three of us had best of fives against each other, like multiple, it would go so even. Like, it's so unpredictable. It's actually really sad. Like, before this day, I was almost scared. Like, I was actually fearing, you don't want to be that one team. Enzo said something yesterday in his interview. He was like, at the end of the week, one team will be crying, and I hope it won't be us. It's like, that is so scary. It feels so good that we're the first team to get through, and we now kind of don't need to worry about that. But obviously we need to win the grand finals too.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next thing to focus on, right? You've got the grand finals tomorrow, either up against that rematch with BRR BRR PATAPIM, Z10 or Virtus.pro, depending on how the game goes later. But you've booked yourself a ticket to China no matter what. So congratulations again, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
That was Fate from RAD Esports, somebody that has been one of the backline strategist players to keep an eye on. And like I mentioned, that combination with Crook and even Naga in some moments as well, they were running that triple strategist. One to keep an eye on for when we get to those international events, that's for sure, right, Tetra?